Hi guys, a lot of people have enjoyed my Genshin Impact lore videos and have said they're pretty relaxing, so I figured I'd put them in one big video for you guys to enjoy. Feel free to have this on in the background as something to relax to, or maybe you'll learn something new about your favorite game. Hope you enjoy. Who is Kachina? This kind-hearted and strong-willed youngling of the Children of Echoes never allows her feelings of defeat to keep her down for long. Determination to prove herself as a warrior, no matter how difficult, makes her willing to push through anything to one day prove her worthiness of the great name Uthibiti.
Hello, I'm Kachina, a member of the Children of Echoes. I adore green fruits and would love to become more strong, even though I'm still not much of a fighter. I should probably save all that for later, right? Then, are you hoping to go somewhere? I'm pretty familiar with these parts, so I can show you the way.
Like the other younglings of her tribe, the Children of Echoes, Kachina grew up with the folklore and heroic stories passed down by her tribal elders. Born with a great sense of adventure, growing up, it didn't take her long to learn her way around the mountains surrounding her tribe's land. She quickly developed a great instinct and skill for searching out and finding treasure and minerals buried beneath the ground. In her downtime, she'd often go to nearby music studios with her friends and dance. But growing up in the mountains of Natlan was a tough environment at times. Bumps and scratches were unavoidable, especially for a child. When Kachina did inevitably hurt herself, she would cry due to the pain like any other child would, but she would often be the first one to wipe away her tears and get back to her feet. She was never one to let things keep her down for long, and this continues going forward and turns out to be a big part of her personality. Kachina understands why the adult tribal members do see her as a good kid, but one thing she doesn't understand is why she was chosen by the Wayub to inherit the great name of Uthibiti.
Uthibiti is my ancient name. It means the ability to stay strong in the face of adversity. But I often wonder why the Wayub decided to give the name to me. I'm so weak, and whether at home or among the tribe, few people even know of me. With so many strong and cool people around me, am I really worthy of the name?
An ancient poem tied to the great name goes as follows, and this will be important later in the story. The one that dares stand as firm as a mountain, their bones like battlements, and hold the sun's gaze, it is they that shall be given unto eternity. Fear itself should instead fear me, for my body is like a roaring blaze, destined to melt down all that is mean and lowly, and then cast it once more as an epitaph. Breaking down this poem, it describes in a sense a determined warrior, capable of anything as long as they don't give up. Kachina has yet to figure out what the poem means or how it relates to her in any way. She only sees herself as an ordinary child who wants to be important enough to live up to her name and prove herself as worthy. Being granted the honor of having a great name does give her determination. No matter how many times her attempts at the pilgrimage of the return of the sacred flame don't end well for her, she keeps going. Even through being ostracized by her peers, her own feelings of disappointment and sometimes overwhelming negativity get her down, young Kachina is more determined than anyone to never give up. Besides the required applicant form for the pilgrimage of the return of the sacred flame pre-registration form that has a lot to say, there's a second optional page the candidates can fill out. It asks about hobbies, personal experiences, and other things like that. Originally, it was used by the promotional team to create materials to hype up participants, but after a while, practically everyone knew all the info about the best contestants. This made the second form kind of irrelevant and unnecessary, and over time, nobody took it seriously. All except for Kachina, who would carefully fill out the second form and every answer on it each time. The first question on the form is about hobbies. One of Kachina's favorite hobbies is dancing. Every member of the Children of Echoes knew about dancing, so much so that it became a stereotype for their tribe. Among her tribe members, Kachina has been a gifted dancer from a young age. Her other favorite hobby, which she honestly feels a bit embarrassed about, is digging. Her absolute favorite thing to do is to dig around tunnels and dig up minerals, but she feels like including this one on the form makes it look like she lacks a personality.
This is the first gem I found. It's such a pretty shade of green, don't you think? It was originally one half of a pear, but I gave the other one to Moalani. Look, the pattern on it looks just like flowing water. Oh, and this one too. It might look black at first glance, but put it under the sun and you'll see a rainbow of color. I built this collection one stone at a time.
The next question on the form is about the people closest to you. Kachina writes the names of her parents, as well as Io. Io is her Tepetlosaurus companion, the one who is always by her side. During her digging adventures, Io is always there with her. When she's with her parents, Io is there too. She deeply cares about this companion, and it makes her happy to think about. Though she'd like to add a few more names to the form, being Mualani, Kanich, and Pakao, there's only so much room to write. Whenever Kachina turns in her form, the worker on duty is always so surprised that she fills out the entire form. But she's fine with that, honestly. She wants to do everything that she possibly can to take the pilgrimage seriously. Tepetlosaurs and the children of Echo's tribe have been living together since the time of Kachina's great-great-grandfather. It is custom within the tribe's people to work and live alongside them and to become companions. For the tribe, Saurians are not like livestock who depend on the humans for their livelihood, nor are they like pets. They stand as equals to the people of the tribe. Most bonds between Tepetlosaurs and humans are formed willingly, like Kachina and Io. These Saurians' nests are never too far from the humans' dwellings. It's custom for both the humans and the Saurians to treat each other as neighbors and respectfully treat each other as such. It's not at all unusual for the two species to interact. When Kachina was younger, she'd often run into a young Tepetlosaur at the crossroads on her way to the mines. She'd always say hi to him. After some time, they began to remember and recognize each other in different places around the village. Eventually, they'd not only greet each other, but they'd exchange gifts as well. For Kachina, befriending this Saurian wasn't complicated. She didn't have to worry about proving her worth to him. They simply just felt comfortable hanging out together. One day, the Tepetlosaur followed Kachina home, where it became a family companion. She named him Io, and from then on, young Io showed her loyalty and companionship as any other friend would. Even through Kachina's failures, Io was a true friend to her and never left her side as her other so-called friends would. He simply just stood by her side, friendship never wavering.
Io is a very important companion to me. Even though he looks well behaved now, he really loved headbutting people when he was younger. He's super strong, so even I get knocked over sometimes. Not much he can do about it though, because it's just how Tepetlosaurs show their affection. Oof! Io! Stop headbutting me! Alright, I won't say any more.
Uthabiti, Kachina's ancient name, carries the meaning of toughness and tenacity. At first, Kachina didn't think she was at all worthy of such an ancient name. After looking at the ancient woven scrolls and learning about the ancient heroes who carried the name before her, she felt even more confused. All of these heroes possessed an incredible amount of power, and their names all have been known for generations. These heroes had maintained their character and strength despite the difficulties they were put through surviving in the harshest conditions, protecting their homelands against the abyss, and facing dangers of war constantly. They never abandoned their responsibilities. Kachina struggled to find this kind of strength within herself. She wasn't nearly as good in battle as the warriors of the Collective of Plenty, and she didn't have near the agility of the riders of the Flowerfeather clan members. She was constantly belittled and degraded by other warriors. She felt a long way from being anything even close to strong. After thinking on it and reaching the conclusion that she wasn't good enough, she was quiet for a while. But she quickly let go of these feelings of sadness. Not because she was training to become a warrior, not because she reached a truth or a revelation, or that her friends and family were worried. Her choice to not let herself succumb to the feelings of her own inferiority came down to her own philosophy. No matter how badly you fall, the first thing you have to do is get back up. And that's exactly what she did. Even when she was younger, when she would fall or get hurt, she'd be back on her feet far before any other child. Even if she was in pain, she wouldn't let it keep her down for long. This has always been true for her. Even while facing hopelessness and fear due to her feelings of inferiority and unworthiness of her great name, she still stood back up. Being so young, she didn't yet know how to fully control her feelings. She'd wear her emotions on her sleeve, but even when she was sobbing and sniffling in front of everyone, she'd just keep pushing forward. Maybe she was stronger than she thought.
Oh, I don't know how I managed to screw things up again today. No, I don't want to cry, but I just can't seem to help myself. Didn't we both already say goodnight to each other? Thank you for staying up and comforting me, though. It means a lot.
After her return from the Night Kingdom, other households of the tribe looked at Kachina and her family differently. Those who had never spoken to them before or who had only been acquaintances had began to actively seek out the family to socialize. The conversations would inevitably turn to be about Kachina. They would praise her bravery and toughness and strengths. Having experienced so many setbacks in her journey and in the end finally returning victorious, others could see her persistence. Her defeats were easily forgotten by everyone except her. Something felt off to her. Her mistakes were being ignored by everyone, even though they still plainly existed. Nothing had really changed besides the way she was treated after her return. Everyone else could forget about her countless failures, but she couldn't, nor did she think she should. She thought that even after tasting victory, she simply could not compare to the other heroes who were victorious time and time again. Her success was in large part due to the support of her friends. There was no way that she could suddenly become her idealized version of herself that easily. She was still young. She still couldn't stop herself from crying when she messed up, no matter how badly she wanted to be the Kachina that always kept going no matter what. In her mind, she figured out a new understanding to her ancient name. Not getting knocked down is one type of tough, but maybe not losing yourself in all the flowers and praise is another. Every child in the Children of Echo's tribe has heard fables about raw ore and gems. This story in particular stood out to Kachina. Before raw ore had been unearthed by the Children of Echoes, it slept soundly below the depths of the mountains. Just an ordinary chunk of rock. Even through being brought to the surface by miners after years of erosion from the rocks above, the ore had not realized its worth. As it was broken, chiseled, and polished by humans, it felt immense pain and did not understand its purpose or what was happening. Even though in the eyes of the humans this was a beautiful process, the ore questioned why must it happen to them. Though the purpose was to reveal its true nature as a gem, the words remained unsaid by the grindstone, who had undergone the process of polishing countless other ores. Until the work was complete, the ore could not see that in the eyes of others the process had made it into a beautiful gemstone. As Kachina walked through the Night Kingdom alone, she recalled this childhood story. She remembered asking her parents questions about what happened to the gemstones. The chill of the Night Kingdom distracted her from reflecting too much on the story, but the memories of her parents brought her warmth. Whether or not she was a shattered ore or a gem that had still not been discovered, she had to push on. She had more things she wished to do, and people she wished to see again. Soon she found herself bathed in sunlight once again, seeing the outstretched hand of the traveler. At that moment, she knew what a gemstone should look like. A sturdy and strong structure, capable of holding up the world even in the darkest hour. At this moment, she had proved herself. She had returned triumphantly from the pilgrimage. The day when she could inspire others had finally come. Many tears and courage had finally smelted the gemstone Kachina. There are many stories of the ancient name Uthabiti, the name now held by Kachina. These stories are traced by golden threads on the banner of Uthabiti. The first thread shows a story of a sword wielder, a girl no taller than a child. She once held back the collapse of the cliffs with her own two hands, saving the lives of the entire tribe. In spirit, she was many times greater than the greatest warriors of all of Natlan. The bright fire of her life burned out quickly, but even at death's door, her spirit remained bright. The second, a brave warrior who fought year after year with his shield, never wavering no matter how much time had passed. Even in his urn after death, his ashes attempted to solidify and burst through, declaring that he could not fit in such a small tomb. His remains were finally scattered amongst the mountains, causing thunder as they drifted down the mountain. The third shows anonymous name holders, whose deeds have been forever hidden by history, though their final moments were peaceful. The fourth strand is offered to the great spear wielder, who held the name high above the pilgrimage. In the Night Kingdom, she traveled with the souls of warriors who battle eternally. Tears do not lessen the glory of the name Uthabiti, and her return from the Night Kingdom marked the beginning of a new age.
There are a lot of legends about heroes in Natlan, and my favorite one is the one about Lord Trowray. How incredibly cool is it to be able to seal the abyss beneath the ground as an ordinary mortal? Oh, that reminds me. You've been to a bunch of countries in Teyvat, so you must know a lot of legends, right? I'm super curious. Could you tell me some of them when you can find the time?
After Kachina's first pilgrimage of the return of the sacred flame had ended in failure, all of her expectations from before had come to nothing. Everyone around her doubted her abilities, and even more painfully, she began to doubt as well, thinking maybe even the Wayab gets it wrong sometimes. It was around this time that she discovered what digging meant to her. She had always loved drilling into the depths of the mountains in search of treasure, but this time she didn't dig with any particular goal. She just bored forward, as though as long as she kept going, the disappointment and sorrow she felt would never be able to bore themselves into her heart, but instead bore into the dirt. Digging made her feel much happier, as if she might turn up with something good rather than just defeat. That failure at the pilgrimage would not be erased, it would forever be a part of her story. The word failure echoed constantly within her head. The people of Natlan say that the Children of Echoes are stubborn, always charging forward. Stopping was never an option in Kachina's mind. Even if above she could never be a towering hero, all she could do was keep moving onward, one step at a time. Kachina didn't yet realize that this persistence was something special in of itself. While digging, she would occasionally dig something interesting up, like how on this day she dug up her vision. Receiving it, she was quite happy, though she had already experienced this feeling before when she received her ancient name. The acknowledgement of an Archon, nor that of the Wayab, meant that she could accomplish some great deed. Tales of young heroes weren't encouraging ones, but dark and gloomy ones instead. But with the initial motivation they need to achieve greatness present, as long as the protagonist keeps moving forward, the future will be bright for them. But in those stories, the characters can never know the ending beforehand. All they can do is keep moving with everything they have. Who is Chevreuse? Being the current captain of the Special Security and Surveillance Patrol in Fontaine, she has an interesting story.
I'm Chevreuse, captain of Fontaine's Special Security and Surveillance Patrol. You'll excuse me if I skip the pleasantries. Is there a case that needs my attention?
After an unfortunate turn of events in her childhood, she grew up in the Fleuve Cendre, if I'm pronouncing that right, the underground area beneath the court of Fontaine with a history of housing people that are not so law-abiding. But Chevreuse grew up with a strong sense of upholding the law. Her father, Donatello, wrong Donatello and wrong sewers. He was also a member of Fontaine's guard. Raising Chevreuse the best he could, he intended for her to be his successor. Later on, often putting her through difficult trials that were meant to frustrate her, which she always seemed to complete without much issue. In his mind, this showed him that she was even more suitable for the job than he was for upholding justice. But we'll talk more about her early life and her father's story later. As the current captain of Fontaine's Special Patrol, Chevreuse is unmatched at her job. She shares a strong bond with her subordinates and those who she works with. For example, she refuses to accept the idea that any of them would act outside of the law without being shown sufficient proof, and they all have a similar respect for her. And though she is amazing at her job, Chevreuse tends to be more lax than leaders of the other branches of Fontaine's law enforcement. And to better explain that, I want to explain first that the law enforcement of Fontaine has many different branches, but they're all under the umbrella of the Maison Gardenie, if I'm pronouncing that right. Chevreuse is captain of one of the branches, the Special Security and Surveillance Patrol. Members of law enforcement in general must undergo rigorous examinations and follow precise instructions. But the Special Security and Surveillance Patrol do things very differently from the other law enforcement agencies. Members are not required to use standardized weapons, and many of them choose to use muskets as a part of their arsenals due to Chevreuse's influence. They also don't have to wear uniforms outside of formal occasions, and many of them refuse to go on missions with Gardamex, which are the robot guards in Fontaine. Chevreuse has a particular dislike for Gardamex. She believes them to just be an obstacle who can get in the actual guard's way and block their bullets. They also have the potential to turn against anyone in an instant due to them being robots and easily hackable. She prefers doing things the old-fashioned way, with human interaction, without the need for new special robot technology. Many of the guards under her have agreed and adopted her sentiment, both as a show of respect for her and because she has valid points about the robots.
Although our organization belongs to the Maison Gardiennage, the Special Security and Surveillance Patrol makes little use of Gardamex. As for the reason, well, let's just say those cumbersome machines would only get in the way of our bullets.
And despite the Maison Gardenie not liking some of the Special Patrol's methods, for the sake of quick problem solving, they're usually willing to overlook the issues. But one thing that they refuse to overlook is Chevreuse's method and willingness to invite serious felons to participate in cases that she is handling as special consultants. Though Chevreuse is very clear that she only does this to catch worse criminals as soon as possible, many of her colleagues believe that relying on criminals to arrest criminals is an insult of the laws of Fontaine and all of law enforcement. They believe it lacks dignity and is humiliating. When Chevreuse is faced with questions about it, she has one general response. The greatest insult to the law is a criminal roaming free and unpunished. Dignity isn't worth the comparison of safety. She's willing to do anything, even sometimes stoop to unlawfulness in order for justice to prevail.
The Special Security and Surveillance Patrol deals with a whole host of heinous crimes and dangerous criminals. As such, the methods we employ to enforce the law can be a bit on the harsher side.
And despite upholding the law, she does occasionally stoop to doing some seemingly unlawful acts or turning a blind eye to some people. For example, she once bribed Emerald for information regarding a mysterious shooter, and she turns a blind eye to Chiori, throwing people out of her store and completely driving out business competitors in Fontaine. In her free time, Chevreuse can often be found reading books, particularly ones in which justice prevails over evil. She also has an unhealthy relationship with junk food, especially while she's at work. When she's off work, she considers junk food food to be her worst enemy and highly dislikes uncooked food. Many members of Fontaine's patrol dislike some of the fearful sentiment taught to Fontaine children by their parents. Children are often told to behave or else the patrol will come and take them away. It's used as a way to get children to obey, even for things like eating snacks or getting bad grades. Even though it's clear to them as adults that the special patrol will never take unwarranted action, the people of Fontaine still tense up when they see Captain Chevreuse, mortally afraid that they might have done something wrong without knowing. Though it's clear that they are there to fight crime, it's still hard to suppress the urge to tense up because of what they were told as children. Many patrol members see it as inappropriate for them to be feared, because in reality they'd never drag anyone away, especially not someone who's not doing anything wrong. They exist to protect, not to be feared. But Chevreuse's response to them when it's brought up to her is maybe there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe the children will always remember the patrol's seemingly infamous reputation when they grow up. That way, maybe a day won't come when the patrol will actually have to come after someone. It'll make them think twice before committing a horrible crime. Fear, even if baseless, will help to keep them from doing anything wrong. In the court of Fontaine, many odd occurrences happen that often confuse outsiders and tourists. There's a lot of weird laws in Fontaine. For example, it's illegal for fruit tarts to be placed directly on unheated plates. Unfinished Fanta can't be placed intentionally in the middle of roads, and it's a legal requirement to trim your pet's claws. Violations of some of these weird laws can be hard to avoid, but Fontainians are familiar with them. If an offense of any law does happen, it's best to choose course of action based on who is sent to deal with the matter. If it's a member of staff, usually conversation can resolve the issue. If it's a uniformed administrator, all onlookers will have to sit through a very long-winded lecture. If it's an officer of the guard that appears, that means that anyone involved won't be getting away scot-free. In many cases, they'll have to pay fines. In this case, it's best to immediately clarify who you are if you're just an innocent bystander who's not involved. However, if it's Chevreuse that appears, that means that a really bad case is unfolding. Perhaps something violent, or with hostages that'll have to be handled with violence. In that case, it's best to evacuate the area with the instructions given to you by the special patrol. Though for some, curiosity may be tempting, it's best to not watch from a close distance. But there's no reason to feel unsafe. If Chevreuse is there, any hope of a criminal escaping is diminished to zero.
The Special Security and Surveillance Patrol is just one of the many branches of the Maison Gardiennage. We have a more daring way of doing things, and some in the Maison Gardiennage are under the impression that we don't exactly play by the rules. But I don't think the way the Special Patrol operates should be influenced by outside forces. The criminals we face aren't your everyday goody-goodies from the Palais Mermonia. When crimes are committed swiftly and without warning, like the sudden downpour of a rainstorm, we have to be able to respond just as fast.
When Chevreuse discusses her father with others, she always offers one simple evaluation. Donatello is an upstanding officer of the law. This is one of the only two impressions she has of her father from her childhood. During her childhood, her father was always busy, leaving in a rush in the mornings and returning exhausted late at night, hugging Chevreuse and her mother and apologizing for being so late. Sometimes he would return home very late, bringing his daughter sweet treats. Sadly, after already brushing her teeth, it was too late for her to have any more sugar. Her mother would allow her to have a bit though, since they were such rare treats, before bringing desserts and coffee to Donatello in his bedroom. During this time at night, he could normally be found facing a wall covered in pictures and thumbtacks, either staring at it blankly, pacing around the room, raising his fists in triumph, or pounding them on the table in defeat. Chevreuse was a witness to all of it, silently peeping in from behind the door. Sometimes she'd run into her father on the street, excitedly waving, only to get a slight smile before he returned to whatever task he was working on. Her father was an upright and good man. Her mother, her neighbors, and everyone they knew praised him. But one day, his colleagues, who always praised him, suddenly came knocking at the door. Her mother was at a loss as they came and left the home. Chevreuse stayed in her room, away from all the commotion. But she had guessed that somehow her father had become a sinner, like the ones he once pursued. She feared that he might even be banished to the fortress of Meripede. This became her second impression of her father, an upstanding sinner. Even the most well-versed of Fontaine citizens would struggle to explain to a child why a suspect who all evidence pointed to could not be convicted, why everyone maintained their silence as an innocent and upstanding officer of the law was falsely accused, and why so many witnesses to the crime refused to speak the truth, why her father must pay with his own reputation and future for justice to make an appearance, why the path to justice must be paved with crime. For Chevreuse, the most jarring of the changes after her father's false conviction was moving to the Fleuve Cendré. Apologies if I'm not pronouncing that right. Her and her mother sharing a narrow room, worse food, and and losing contact with friends who now never spoke to her. That, and now her mother growing more ill and weak by the day. Her father's colleagues often visited in plainclothes bringing gifts and news, speaking of how hard they were working on Donatello's appeal. Not just the guards in the Special Patrol, but several of the administrators who worked with them. And how, despite the fact that her father had broken the law to achieve justice, his sentence could not be shortened. It only made her mother worry more though. In order to take care of her mother, who was growing frail, Chevreuse didn't hesitate to take up burdens that a child as young as her should never have to. And perhaps it was because the residents of the Floof Cinderae had heard about or been on the receiving end of her father's care. So many of their helping hands were extended to her. A kind shop owner gave her a job, and the next door neighbors often took care of her mother for her while she was gone. When the children learned that the child of a guard had come to live among them, they flocked to her, seeking her opinions on disputes among them. They saw it as a game, and soon Chevreuse would bring a stack of legal materials in a notebook, and began solving these disputes between the other children. But unlike the officers above ground, her judgments were executed under her supervision. At this time is when she began to learn to do her best to uphold justice.
The criminals I encounter aren't all cold-blooded killers and heartless villains. Most of them start off by making a small mistake, but are too afraid to own up to it. In their efforts to make up for it in secret, they end up getting sucked into a whirlpool of lies. Before they know it, they're in over their heads, and they're forced down the path of a criminal despite the best of intentions. There's this line by my favorite playwright that goes, "Lies are the soil in which the seeds of crime are sown." But he was arrested for plagiarism a few years later. Talk about dramatic irony, I suppose.
Donatello was exiled for breaking the law, leaking classified intelligence regarding a major case in order to gain interest from the press to assist in investigating the criminal he was after. He served his time in the fortress of Meripede, and Chevreuse continued growing up, the child of a sinner, and as such, she was unable to work for the Maison Gardenie, but she was able to seek fighting crime as a member of the Special Security and Surveillance Patrol, as her father did after serving his time. She was no longer a child and knew exactly what her father had done. Though he was at first uneasy about his daughter following in his footsteps, she had completed every bit of training that he prepared for her. She passed every single one of his rigorous trials, even those meant to frustrate her, even plunging into freezing cold winter seas. It was hard for Donatello to see her go through the trials he set, wanting to help his child and cradle her, but his willpower allowed him to watch instead of help. And she passed every single trial. He eventually saw that she was even more suited to uphold justice than him. She was stronger than him. As the captain of the Special Patrol at the time was hearing her case when she was ready to join them, she found herself explaining her statement over and over. But they only wanted to hear one thing from her: her agreement that her father was guilty of his crimes, and that the results of the hearing all those years ago were correct. Justice would make its appearance. Eventually they would let her in, and eventually she would become the best of all of them. Compared to the original version, the improved version of the Special Security and Surveillance Patrol's standard musket has a modified stock that better fits the human shoulders, as well as a longer barrel. Some specialized Type 2 muskets feature lots of other attachments, such as scopes, grenade launchers, and all types of melee weapons. Though Chevreuse, now the captain of the Special Patrol, worked to modify the firearms, she added several other requirements for her training regiments, stating that the reason for the Special Patrol is to capture criminals, not to walk around showing off your gun. Chevreuse has every member train in unarmed combat, as well as with different types of weapons. Thanks to the Type 2 musket, the amount of training has vastly increased. Chevreuse completed 100% of every training regiment, while some members of the patrol begged her for mercy in their training.
The musket is my favorite weapon. It's both powerful and threatening. Sometimes the latter trait is far more useful.
How did Chevreuse get her vision? She rarely discusses how she did on her own accord. To others, she says that the reason she doesn't talk about it is because the authority and prestige of the Special Patrol comes from law and justice. Focusing on visions will only create misunderstanding, so it's better to not discuss it. But those who are close to her know that her vision is much more of a heavy burden to her.
My vision is certainly an integral part of the way I execute my duties. For instance, my musket has never had a major malfunction since I received my vision. I'd say a captain who wields a musket and a vision is more than enough to scare off a few cowardly criminals.
After joining the Special Patrol, she used her talent and perseverance to complete all kinds of intense training programs, memorizing every rule, regulation, and standard for operations. Without question, she was quickly first in her class. Her pursuit of justice was admired by her peers, but the officer in charge of them, Vice Captain Grizzetti, disagreed. He would never pick Chevreuse Chevreuse for field missions. Her and the other members could only guess why. Was it to protect her? She was the daughter of Donatello, one of his closest friends. He had helped take care of her during her father's time in prison, and she had grown close with him as a child, even seeing him as an uncle. Maybe he was planning to take her on some sort of more important job. Chevreuse tried not to think about it much, but after the 6th time of being excluded from missions, she couldn't bear it any longer not to ask why. His only response was, "You're not ready." He instructed her to fix her conception of justice, and that if her understanding of it was limited to an eye for an eye approach, it was best for her to leave. At the time, Chevreuse had not yet grasped the full concept of justice, and she didn't know when she would be ready. Soon after though, Grissetti found himself short-handed during an urgent mission hunting down a gang of criminals. With no choice, he finally called on Chevreuse, but he repeatedly warned her not to act without his permission, to follow orders and to stay close. Soon after they headed out, closing off every possible route that the gang of criminals could take. Chevreuse and Grissetti concealed themselves in some bushes and waited. After some time, the criminals had not appeared. The two of them began to think that their intelligence was mistaken. As they were preparing to leave, a shot rang out from a hidden position, and Grissetti was struck. Almost instantly, Chevreuse counterattacked, using the criminal's muzzle flash in the darkness as a guide, and hit them with a single precise bullet. But sadly, her uncle Grissetti's wound had quickly been fatal. Now, only her and the killer remained. The howling wind and the torrential downpour could conceal the sound of another gunshot, and the special patrol might not look too closely in the case of how this killer who murdered one of their colleagues had been shot dead. She wanted to carry out justice, and the criminal was right in front of her. She lifted her musket, aimed right between his eyes, but then lowered her gun. The special patrol speaks only in the name of justice, and true justice can only be decided by the courts. Perhaps this is what Grissetti meant, and this is what it meant to be a member of the special patrol. She shouted to the criminal that they were under arrest. No sooner had she finished speaking, the criminal began to hobble away, attempting to flee. With the crack of a musket, the man was struck in his right leg. He cried out in agony as the other members of the special patrol had rushed over. The justice of the law is carried out by the courts, but as for Chevreuse's personal justice, that was carried out by her alone. As she finally completely lowered her musket, she had yet to notice a pyrovision was now hanging from its stock. In the horrible wind and rain, its glow was not readily apparent, much like justice yet to be revealed, pale and dark. Who is Kaveh? Residents of Sumeru likely know his name well. To them, Kaveh is a well-known architect who many have described to be a genius. He's one of the most high-profile figures in Sumeru's architectural industry. He puts everything into his work, literally everything he has, and we'll discuss that later in this video.
I'm glad you gave me a chance. I always think it takes people with similar tastes to sustain a pleasant conversation. Nice to meet you. I'm Kaveh, an architect. If you have a project you'd like me to work on, then I'll need a detailed description of what you have in mind.
As an honors Kashar War graduate, Kaveh has a passion for the arts. He greatly appreciates the aesthetics of architecture, mechanics, and design. He's greatly empathetic and thoughtful towards everyone he meets, and is known for helping anyone he sees who's in need, even going as far as to provide his own mora. Once he even purchased dozens of keychains from a vendor whose proceeds were to go to feeding hungry children. He believes that mutual assistance and fairness are the keys to success. Kaveh is very passionate about his career as an architect. His greatest work and masterpiece is the Palace of Alcazar-Zure. Due to his outstanding work, he's seen as a role model to other Kashar students. To this day, students idolize him for his projects, some of which being single-handedly designing the Palace of Alcazar-Zure, renovating the lighthouse of Port Ormos, modifying the port's elevators and cargo structures, and his role in the spatial optimization of the surrounding areas. Many students only dream of having a resume like this. His reputation is fully due to his work. He puts his heart and soul into his projects and spares no effort. Kaveh pays special attention to the aesthetic aspects of his designs and creations.
You must have seen the Palace of Alcazar-Zure before. That's my magnum opus. I sacrificed so much for that. Everyone else thought I'd lost my mind. Well, if you're not me, and you don't share my trade, I wouldn't expect you to understand. It'd be nice to meet someone who did understand, though.
Interestingly enough, though, despite his fame, reputation, and seemingly successful career, not many know much else about him. Nobody knows the truths that he keeps hidden behind his stories, especially not that the man has gone completely bankrupt over a singular project. Those who are aware tend to keep it a secret, and Kaveh himself is terrified of the secret getting out. The titles he's known for don't affect him personally, rather to him they can be seen as shackles at times. As an example, he believes that somebody somebody with no fame could outwardly live by the means they have. A famous architect couldn't just admit to being penniless without causing others' views of him to change. To prevent this, he outwardly wears a facade of a man living in leisure. He's terrified to admit the truth of his situation publicly because he doesn't want people to see him as less. So though he may show it on the outside by wearing fancy designer clothes, helping others, and seeming overall happy, Kaveh is far from living his ideal life. So how did he lose everything he owned? That's a long and complicated story, so let's just start at the beginning. Kaveh was born into a scholarly family in Sumeru, his father being from the Ruwais Darshan and once working for the academia, and his mother being a Koshar War graduate and a famous architect herself. Kaveh was inspired by them at a young age and was very interested in architectural design, even playing with block puzzles as a child. It was there that young Kaveh would gain his understanding of home. His happy family life would not last forever though. At some point during Kaveh's childhood, partly due to Kaveh's encouragement, his father would join the Inner Darshan Championship. His father would just barely miss becoming champion and proceed to go missing for some time after his defeat. His disappearance would terrify Kaveh and his mother. Unfortunately, following this, some tragic news would come to the family. His father had died in an accident in the desert. While Kaveh's mother would fall into intense anxiety and depression, Kaveh would blame himself for his father's death. He thought that if he hadn't encouraged his father to join the competition, none of this would ever have happened. Seeing his mother unable to smile again, Kaveh would live with this guilt for the remainder of his life. His definition of home shattered, and no matter how much he wished, nothing could take back the past. At the time, there was little he could do because of his young age. Out of guilt, he always kept his mother company and did his best to support her in any way possible. As he grew up and enrolled in school, he would inevitably spend less and less time with his mother. It wasn't his fault, he was just growing up. Eventually, she decided to travel to Fontaine, and after receiving a job offer, she left home for good. This would leave Kaveh completely alone in his once happy and safe childhood home. He would deeply miss her, but he knew this was what was best for her. And despite his internal feelings, he would never once admit his overwhelming loneliness. He believed that as someone capable of harming his father, he deserved all that came to him. His tragic early life is what taught him to care for others, and set his mindset. For many years onward, Kaveh would continue helping anyone and do anything they asked of him, but no matter what he does or how much he helps others, the guilt still remains. After graduating, Kaveh began his work by helping with a group project with the other students of the same darshan. The work would weigh on him heavily, but he would put all of his energy into it. It would end up with him shouldering the project's work for the other students for 2 entire years. But after gaining enough experience, he left that in order to pursue work under his own name. This marked the beginning of his career as an architect, and through his hard work he was able to save up quite a bit of mora. Soon though, he ran into issues. The demands of the market became very different from academic design. His clients' requests became harder and harder to meet as artistic design became less and less relevant, partly due to the ideal of the 6 sages. Kaveh would suggest various beautiful designs only to be rejected on them being meaningless and non-practical. Felt as if he had no freedom with his designs, with everyone being skewed towards necessity and practicality. He was forced to stick to these ideals though that he didn't particularly like because his projects required investments and funding. With his career and his dreams at odds, Kaveh gave himself a long vacation. Upon returning, he would find a letter from his mother informing him that she had decided to remarry in Fontaine. Kaveh would take part in the wedding and was grateful to see his mother smile once again. Afterwards, returning to Sumeru, he would feel lost and lonely once again, having nothing but himself and the empty childhood home that his mother had left to him. The more he worked in the construction industry, the stronger his dislike of society became. Soon though, a turning point came when he was sought out by a wealthy merchant, Dory, to construct a private mansion. She only had 2 conditions: that the mansion be large and extravagant. Kaveh would question her regarding details of the design, but she was uninterested. Only that she wanted it to be built in a secluded place for business purposes, which Kaveh was careful not to ask too many questions about. But as for aesthetics, Dory let Kaveh do as he wished, which was perfect for him. Mansion construction without limits is exactly what he would want to put his all into. Dory would provide the mora and resources, Kaveh would do the work. Simple business practice. Kaveh once insisted on his design going down in history. Precisely planned and picked everything to the tiniest detail. From the beautiful cliffside location to the placement of flowers in the extravagant garden, everything seemed to be going perfectly. That is, until the unpredictable happened. Even with every consideration Kaveh had made, he never would have predicted that the Withering would move in overnight when the mansion was 70% complete. Before strangers were able to disperse the Withering, the entire building and years worth of work were beyond saving. This angered both Dori and Kaveh. He begged her to allow him to rebuild and finish his work on the Palace of Alcazarzaray. However, Dori would point out that he was the one who made the final decision for the location of the mansion. If she were to allow him to rebuild, who would cover the losses? Over the course of that night, Kaveh sat atop the ruins contemplating. He had his own savings and the property his mother had left to him. Did it even feel like home anymore anyway? He made a final decision. He sold his childhood home and took that money along with his own savings to Dori, which accounted for 70% of the necessary mora required for the construction of the Palace of Alcazarzaray. Dori agreed and was willing to pay for the final 30%. This is how Kaveh, a famous architect, lost everything. The palace was completed on a beautiful sunny day and Kaveh had truly given his all to the construction. This was his greatest architectural achievement, though in the end the property didn't belong to him in the slightest and left him completely bankrupt. Dori also requested payment for the final 30%, which left Kaveh highly in debt to her. While he did what he could to oppose and resist this, his own guilt and ideals consumed him and he agreed to pay. Dori could immediately sense that he was only paying not for her sake, but for the sake of his own ideals, and she took full advantage of that. Kaveh would then become homeless for a period of time after the construction was finished. Now directionless, broke, and living in a world run by Mora, Kaveh felt completely lost. But due to how he was raised, he refused to let anyone know of the situation. His colleagues praised him for his astounding work on the palace, the human narrative to its design, craftsmanship, and his imagination. But they would all remain unaware that this project had cost him literally everything. Kaveh would frequently find himself at a local tavern and turning to alcohol to comfort himself. His body wasn't very tolerant either, collapsing only after one bottle.
I like to have a drink or two when I've got the time. It's a good way to de-stress. Oh, yeah, I mean, mostly just to pass the time. What's that look for? All right, I admit it. Maybe I do drown my sorrows a little more often than I was letting on. It all gets a bit too much sometimes, with the unfinished projects, obstacles that I can't overcome, misunderstandings with other people. Don't you struggle with those kinds of things as well?
Lambad, the owner of the tavern, reserved a seat and a few free drinks for him, and as thanks, Kaveh helped him redesign the booth and the seating area. Occasionally, Kaveh would run into old friends from his time at the academia. They'd drink together, talk, and gather inspiration. Eventually, though, he would encounter someone, an old friend and academia scribe named Alhaitham. He enrolled later than most of his age. Alhaitham's grades and expertise at the academia stood out above the rest. He was mysterious, and nobody knew where to find him normally, but when others heard his name, he was known for his intelligence. Old researchers from the Kashara War would say that he's too intelligent for his own good and hard to get along with. When Kaveh first met him, he would meet him in the academia and speak to him out of curiosity. He would soon realize that Alhaitham was extremely talented and gifted, much like himself, but was also completely different from him in regards to personality, social interactions, and academic direction. Kaveh's least favorite memories from school were those of a group project he and Alhaitham took on together. They each recognized each other's abilities and decided to conduct research on ancient structures, runes, and linguistics. At first this was a group project, but it was quickly left to just Kaveh and Alhaitham as the other students couldn't keep up and began to drop out. Arguments first arose when Kaveh attempted to stop the students from dropping off the project and wanted to help them to understand their work, while Alhaitham saw this as charity, useless, and would not change their differences in ability. Eventually, with only the two left on the project, disputes between them only got worse and worse.
I guarantee you'll never meet anyone else who's as infuriating as him. And for the record, yes, I would say that to his face. Sure, he's smart, and sure, geniuses often come with a bad temper. But that's only half the story with him. He knows perfectly well how to appear friendly and likable to others, he just doesn't want to. If he ever gives you the impression that he doesn't really have a temper, or that he's rigidly logical like a machine, then you just don't know him well enough yet. He definitely has a personality. It's just too big a personality. Most people wouldn't get it.
Kaveh saw Alhaitham as egotistical, and that he'd be much more welcomed by people if he was just willing to help out. Alhaitham saw Kaveh as the opposite, pointed out that Kaveh's idealism would come to be a burden of his existence one day, and was only fueled by his inescapable sense of guilt that he still carried from his father's death. The two would quickly part when Alhaitham pointed this out to Kaveh's face. This failed project would become an unavoidable part of Kaveh's past, and after losing everything due to his work on the Palace of Alcazarzaray, Kaveh would finally see the meaning in his old friend's words.
Someone set up a stand on the street saying that for each handmade keychain they sold, a child in poverty would be given a meal. Kaveh bought at least a dozen. This is Sumeru, where even healthcare is free. I needn't say more.
Meeting Alhaitham in the tavern was the last thing Kaveh expected. After reconnecting, Kaveh unloaded his unfortunate life story to his old friend, finally telling someone where everything went wrong. Alhaitham, though, seeing through him once again, would ask, how was realizing your ideals gone for you? At this point, Kaveh was at a loss. Soon after, Kaveh would find himself roommates with Alhaitham, living in a house converted from the same research station that the Academia had provided them with back in the day. Kaveh, still plagued with his guilty conscience, would mention helping out with household chores, only to be burdened with them himself. He saw that his past friend hadn't, and will never change. But at such a low point in his life, he was satisfied just to have a roof over his head. Also, fun fact, these two characters are the only ones with a shared idol.
Where's my...
Wait.
Just the time to accompany them.
What again?
Whatever.
Alhaitham does respect Kaveh as a master builder and craftsman. He sees him as a mirror of himself, but believes his personality and values do not match his abilities. He believes him to be emotionally fragile and far too considerate of others.
He tends to be overly sensitive about everyone and everything he crosses paths with, and he's constantly making a fuss about nothing. Maybe it's because he's too emotionally fragile.
Something Kaveh always has with him is his sketchbook. This old leather-bound book has pages and scraps from things from all over the course of Kaveh's life. It includes drawings, journal entries, quotes, clippings, all of Kaveh's memorabilia. During his time as a student, Kaveh was often busy with various projects, in which he would visit various ruins with his fellow students. On one of their studies, there was a cave-in, nearly trapping Kaveh and two others in the ruin. Kaveh was able to push them out though, and just barely escape himself with only a couple minor wounds. He had heard of things called visions, but originally thought that they would appear during moments of crisis. Having been through a crisis already, he figured that he had not received the favor of the gods and eventually ceased to think about visions for some time. He just continued on with his life. This continued until the first version of the Palace of Alcazarzaray was destroyed by the Withering. Once he made his decision to do as he felt right, he sold his home and belongings the next day, and then would invest every single mora he had into rebuilding the Palace of Alcazarzaray. After selling the sale of the house, he returned one last time. He used flatbread to make a simplified version of the palace. This type of dish was taught to him by his father, and he had not made it since his father's passing. Once he finished making the dish, he decided to smash it and start eating. But when he smashed it, he saw a shimmering dendro vision laying inside the bread on the center of his plate. Unable to believe it, he accepted the vision, though this favor had arrived many years too late.
I almost don't want to say this out loud, but sometimes hopes and dreams bring suffering instead of happiness. Luckily, I don't mind my vision.
Kaveh's story is a saddening one, but it shows the story of a man willing to lose everything in order to achieve his dreams. Who is Kamisato Ayato? This young and accomplished but private man is the current head of the Ashura Commission's Kamisato clan. Oh, and did I mention he likes boba? Ayato very much has the characteristics of a Hydrovision wielder. He's strategic but soft about it, controlling but in a confident way and not a worrying way. He has his confidants like Toma and his allies and his sister Ayaka, and he's candid and kind about everything. And sly, which comes with being calculating.
Greetings. Ayaka has mentioned you on numerous occasions. Alas, my schedule has been rather busier than anticipated recently, which belated our first meeting until today. Kamisato Ayato, head of the Kamisato clan. Delighted to make your acquaintance.
Though he's a household name in Inazuma, Ayato isn't someone who likes to show his face publicly. He prefers to live a simple life and to just perform his duties as Yashiro Commissioner. Most only know that he's head of the Kamisato clan and an important figure in the shogunate. Not many have as clear of an impression of him as they do others, like his sister Ayaka or Shirisagi Himegimi. He's not a fan of showing off his fighting skills either, only using them when necessary and not making a show of it. Some are uneasy about him because of what they don't know, assuming he has some kind of tricks up his sleeve in the political space. Ayato is unfazed by the impressions of others though, just wanting to serve the shogun. Unfortunately, he's usually very busy and stressed, having to deal with corrupt government officials as well as performing his duty as the leader of the Shumatsuban. Forgive me if I pronounce that wrong. He dislikes small talk, preferring others to just get to the point, and has many methods of dealing with the corrupt officials, usually all legal.
Troubles? Whenever something's troubling me, it must be dealt with, swiftly and comprehensively. And whenever someone is troubling me...
He's not particularly well known due to wanting to stay private and out of the public spotlight, but to those who are familiar with him, he's incredibly kind and respected, which has inspired loyalty from these people. He's also known not to be underestimated. One example is Hiratatsu. Again, forgive me. He claims that he continues to serve the Yashiro Commission in order to pay back the generosity that Ayato showed him and his master. It's also implied that Ayato is the one who inspired Toma to the point of him receiving a vision. Ayato highly values loyalty, trust, and obedience in his allies, Toma being a great example of this.
Trusting another person isn't easy, especially for someone of high status. Place your trust in the wrong person, and it can quite literally cost you your life. But you have placed your trust in me, and of course, I will not let you down. When it comes to pets... yes, I'm definitely more of a dog person myself. Cats are very independent, which has its merits, but you'll only find obedience in dogs. They'll do whatever you tell them to. What can I say? I suppose I find loyalty to be quite an attractive quality.
It's also implied that there have been multiple assassination attempts against him, which is why he values these traits and works so hard to protect himself. Ayato is very mature for his age as head of the family. Years ago, when the Yashiro Commission and Kamisato clan were falling apart, he stepped up into his new role and fixed the situation. We'll get into this more later. He deeply cares for his sister, Ayaka. As per his parents' wishes, he took position as Yashiro Commission in order to protect her. He has stated that he would not forgive anyone who would cause any harm to his family, and he has done his best to ensure that Ayaka has people to rely on when she needs them. He's also risked his life smuggling the Watatsumi army into Tinshukaku. Geez, not again. This was a favor for Ayaka. And just like his sister, he cares for the well-being of the people of Inazuma.
I am confident in Ayaka's abilities, but I want her to be able to hold on to her innocence. She shouldn't have to get personally involved in power struggles, or confront the darker side of life head-on. As her older brother, it's my job to shield her from all of that. Just between the two of us, of course. Sorry, that got a little more private, a little more quickly than I'd intended.
As the eldest son of nobility, Ayato has been loved his entire life. Even though his parents were often too busy to be with him, they always made sure he was taken care of. As he grew older, his father would start a strict training regimen, teaching him all he needed to know to become the family's successor one day. Due to stress, his father's health would rapidly decline, resulting in an early death, and Ayato having to take the reins. Thrown headfirst into a political battle to save his clan's position, most people and politicians didn't respect someone so young as leader. Over time, though, he was able to prove everyone wrong, making the Kamisato clan's position more stable and more well-respected than ever. After proving himself with lots of hard work and dedication, the Kamisato clan is proud to have a leader such as him, and he's an acknowledged and respected commissioner to all. Both the Raiden Shogun and Yae Miko have seen Ayato as mischievous, unpredictable, and hard to understand, Yae strongly disliking him as a result. But he's tolerated by both as he's been able to step up as commissioner, and he's been able to uphold the Shogun's will. An example of him being mischievous is whenever he sees Toma, he always has him try strange types of food, which has caused Toma to be scared of him whenever he sees him.
It looks like I mixed up my salt and my sugar. Savory Mizumanju. Yes, this can work. I'll give them to Toma.
Ito says that Ayato is a warrior and that they're on the same wavelength. He's also easily able to find Sayu when she runs off, despite not having much ninja training, when almost everyone else has difficulty finding her. The Yashiro Commission is mainly in charge of ritual matters on Narukami Island, as well as cultural matters, ensuring that both Inazuma's people and deities are pleased. Luckily for Ayato, the responsibility isn't entirely on him. Ayaka shares in much of the clan's responsibilities. She usually handles the interactions between the commission and the people, while Ayato focuses mainly on governance. Having to deal with officials from other commissions and clans is difficult to deal with. Politics and tasks get more difficult with more people involved. One of Ayato's best strengths is his ability to deal with these matters. He sees that people are driven by interests, so focuses on finding leverage for cooperation. By doing this, he's able to solve most matters while pleasing both sides. It's interesting to see Ayato's ways of negotiating. He's in no way competitive, even going as far as to share his benefits so that everyone is satisfied. Many people question what he's up to, but does anyone really care once they all have their piece of the pie? Over time, Ayato has gained a lot of respect in the shogunate, many coming to him to solve the most difficult issues. He won't just help anyone at any given moment though, he prioritizes the wants and needs of the Kamisato clan. Though Ayato doesn't get out much due to his work, he by no means lives a boring life. He's actually often rather amused in political meetings. Watching a bunch of old men argue can be kind of funny. Sometimes he'll see one of the staff from Yai Publishing House around, apparently reporting for work. Though he pretends not to notice, he can see that they're just skipping work and, well, maybe accidentally tells Yai Miko. Sometimes he'll stop by a unique snack stand or shop, buying whatever he finds interesting and bringing it home to the rest of the household. Sometimes he'll interact with the yokai around Shinju Forest when he sees them playing tricks on people passing by. And Ayato never says no to a game of hot pot with Toma, Ayaka, and the others. These are some ways he keeps his mind entertained. The Kamisato estate is always perfectly clean due to the work of the butler and the housekeeper, all except for one space, Ayato's table. Unorganized piles of books and papers and other random objects covering the workspace. Every time Ayato finishes work for the day, the servants all need to come and clean up the space for the next day. They often find notes written by many people about a variety of things, from what flowers he wants on his table and around the estate, to food and recipes that others have gotten from the traveler, and what ingredients they want in the kitchen, to different notes from servants. This is how Ayato prefers that others communicate with him effectively due to his tight schedule. Unfortunately, this method only makes his table messier. In Inazuma, an old tradition is to pray to the deities and offer cypress leaves, though these rituals lack scale and go forgotten by many. From his childhood, Ayato remembers his mother talking about these types of leaves and how they're sacred and never will, how they symbolize prosperity and have ever since ancient times. These sacred and traditional festivities were important to Ayato's mother. She'd state that perhaps the Kamisato clan of the Yashiro Commission was born to protect the deities. At the time, Ayato had not fully agreed with this statement. He believed that the clan belonged to itself and the family members. Service to a god was merely a job. These types of words could never be said out loud though. Ayato's duty to the clan would take up more and more of his time as time went on, as well as swordsmanship, books, and his father's lessons. As he grew older, he saw more and more how dedicated his clan was to the service of the shogun, always hearing that the Kamisato clan stands today because of Narukami's mercy. As such, the clan must defend the road to eternity and follow the shogun eternally. Through readings and ancestral teachings, he eventually figured out why. Elders of the Kamisato clan's failings had resulted in a great loss for the Raiden Gokuden. If not for Yai Miko's interference causing the shogun to show mercy, the Kamisato clan would likely be no more. This was a show of grace, and also a warning. Ayato never strayed from the teachings of his father, even though he still believed in protecting his family and his clan above all else. He saw that Inazuma was sustained by the Electro Archon's protection, and only peace could result in the prosperity of his clan. He does his best to wholly serve the shogun, even if deep down he feels differently.
Everything comes at a cost. And if you aspire to things that most could never dream of, then, naturally, there will be an unimaginable price to pay.
One of Ayato's favorite pastimes is calligraphy practice. something that growing up he found to be very boring. He'd been forced to practice his penmanship to better play the part of the eldest son of the Kamisato clan. Nowadays though, he enjoys transcribing poems as it's a way for him to clear his mind. Also, it helps him look busy with official business even when he's not. Sometimes as a way of procrastination or avoiding certain people. His servants quickly got the impression that he not only likes playing chess, but also very much enjoys calligraphy. Due to talk about this, he often receives brushes and pens as gifts, some of which even being very expensive and from overseas. He's never really tried to clarify any speculation about his love for writing, instead had a wooden case built to store everything that was given to him. New pens are fun to try out after all. These gifts also tell Ayato a lot about the person who sent them. He has 3 pens that he's never placed in the case though. One which sits on his desk, worn from writing petitions. Another is stored in the bottom drawer of his desk, used by him when he was learning and often borrowed by Toma and Ayaka. And a third, a gift from his mother, stored in a wooden cabinet sealed in a silk bag. This one's special to him. One night long ago, Ayato's ill father summoned him to his room. His father seemed different, concerned, and he asked Ayato many things. If his training was done, if he'd eaten enough for dinner, and how his swordsmanship was progressing. But throughout the conversation, his dark expression hid something that he could not say. Eventually though, after a glance from Ayato's mother, his father reminded him that no matter what happens to the Kamisato clan, he was the eldest son, the successor, and the clan was proud to have him. After leaving his parents' room, Ayato would return to his own. As he entered, he saw a shining hydrovision laying on his desk.
A vision is an eminently useful tool, so it only makes sense to put it to good use. Also, I like to think it's happiest in my possession because it has the chance to shine away in all its glory.
Since his childhood, he had heard that visions were signs of the god's favor born from human wishes. Also since childhood, he wished to one day take his place as the family successor. He wanted to make sure his clan would prosper, and he wanted to take care of his family. Was this a sign that his time had come? Instead of calling the servants to light his lamps, he sat down beside the shimmering blue light. Many things processed through his mind. Both of his parents were unwell, the clan was leaderless, and the competitors began to see that. They couldn't let go of the Shimatsuban, command which had been passed down for generations. Some of the clan's servants could be trusted if the clan's power were to decline. But what of Toma, a man who had come from a different land? Would he leave if the clan were to fall? Ayato was determined not to let his family's clan fall. That night, he sat at his desk with just the light of the vision. When dawn broke, he was prepared to face the world. If you've enjoyed, please hit the subscribe button and let me know who you want me to talk about next. Who is Arataki Ito? Despite wanting to appear as someone who others should fear, Ito is mostly a kind person with a joking and lighthearted personality. He's the first and self-proclaimed greatest head of Inazuma's Arataki gang. He's highly respected by his gang, and he's liked by most of the people of Inazuma, though he is frequently at odds with the Tenryou Commission and Kujosara, despite him and his gang's crimes being nothing more than just harmless antics and pranks most of the time.
I'm the head honcho of the Arataki gang, and everyone knows my names. I have many. Arataki, the one and only Ito. Arataki, the Oni Sumo King Ito. Arataki, the pride of Oni Ito. Arataki, Beetle Gladiator Ito. Arataki, the ultimate TCG champion Ito. Arataki, he might lose, but he'll never admit defeat. Anyway, these are some of the ones I usually go by, so go ahead, take your pick. I'll respond to whichever one you choose, I promise. You're welcome.
Ito is an Oni and takes a lot of pride in his Oni heritage, his key traits being his Oni horns and his loud voice. Ito is very much a free soul, always in search of adventure and always joyful wherever his spirit takes him. He very much dislikes anyone who discriminates against his kind though. He recognizes and is always grateful for the sacrifice made by the Blue Oni to ensure that their kind could be accepted into present-day human society. Ito always sticks by the age-old pact to never use his strength for malicious purposes.
The Oni have been through a lot to get to where we are today. And look at us now, living peacefully alongside the humans. Unfortunately, there's still plenty of people out there who've got a bone to pick with us. Change? Oh yeah, things are gonna change, all right. You can count on that. But I'll tell you what, it won't involve any sucking up to the humans on my part. Nuh-uh. I'm gonna let my actions do the talking. They'll come to respect me eventually.
Due to Ito's pride, he is extremely competitive, though he knows when to concede or when he's going too far. He can usually be found in Hanamazaka, and it's not hard to notice him in his enthusiasm. He claims to be the first and greatest head of the Arataki gang, which he founded. He tried explaining his duties to to some of the Tenryou Commission officials when they came to him to investigate a street brawl, though it was rather harmless. After a couple of minutes of him explaining, they interrupted him before marking him down as unemployed, though that's not entirely accurate. But the shogunate does not acknowledge gang activities as work. Ito often does odd jobs for money when he needs it, usually working one day before taking the next 3 off, plus gang activities. See, he's productive.
Oh, so they're saying I can't hold down a real job, huh? Well, sorry to break it to you, but I'm a delinquent. That means it's my job not to have a real job. And if anyone's got a problem with that, who's got a problem with that, huh? You got a problem with that? You got a problem with... Choking. Sorry, I got a little worked up there. Where was I? Oh yeah, so work isn't really my thing, but don't worry, I don't rob or steal or anything like that. When I'm really running low on funds, I just take the odd job here and there to make ends meet. You know, like transporting stuff, delivering documents, helping businesses attract customers, just enough to keep the wolf from the door.
Unfortunately for Ito, his reputation in Inazuma City leaves much to be desired. Although he's not considered a villain by the public, he's certainly not a law-abiding citizen. He's not seen as a huge threat to anyone though. This scenario used by Inazuma's people to discipline their children better explains it. One of the threats to the misbehaving children is if you don't behave, the great Mujina yokai will grab you and take you deep within the mountains, or you'll be inlaid upon the shogun's statue. As for Ito, the threats are much less severe, like if you don't behave, Arataki Ito will come and snatch your snacks. See, much less severe of a threat, but not something that you'd like to happen either. But still, that's far from the truth of what Ito would actually do. Snatching a child's candy wouldn't happen, because according to Ito's code of law, the fate of the snacks would have to be decided by ritual combat. In the eyes of many people, winning snacks off of children through competition is exceedingly shameless. But Ito believes that every battle must be taken seriously, and treats them all as such. They're all treated the same, whether it's a battle against a child or the shogun herself. Also, due to his conviction, Ito can lose to a child without any reservations, the same as he could lose to anyone else. While the adults of Inazuma City have much to say about Ito's behavior, the children just see him as some sort of big playmate. Their competitions are often Onikabuto beetle battles. These are fun for both sides to watch and give the children a fair shot, unlike actually fighting them. For the longest time, the Tenryou Commission has seen the Arataki gang as just sort of a troublemaker group who don't require too much attention. The group only has around 10 members at most, and there are many internal disagreements within the group anyway, mostly about the date of its founding. Akira believes that the group began when Ito first saved him from a group of bandits. On that day, Ito persisted in the fight even after being knocked down several times. The bandits eventually backed off in annoyance to his persistence. Helping Akira back to his feet, Ito declared him a member of the Arataki gang. Genta and Mamoru believe that the gang was founded at the end of the year when they all camped on the outskirts of Inazuma City and roasted lavender melons together. On that day, not any of them had a single mora to their name, and they were all very hungry. While eating a lavender melon himself, Ito declared that they should do that every year as a sort of tradition. In Shinobu's perspective though, the gang was officially formed when she had to drag Ito out of the shogunate jail, since this was the first time that any official records were made about the group. As for Ito, he believes that the gang has existed from the first moment that the words entered his mind, though unfortunately he no longer remembers when that was. And as for Granny Oni, the human who has taken care of Ito since he was young, there is no such thing as the Arataki gang. She just sees Ito and his friends.
In the Arataki gang, we're proud to welcome people who've experienced adversity in their lives. Don't listen to the people who call us freaks or weirdos. Every member of my gang is like family to me, and they all feel the same way. Whatever happens, the gang will face it together, both the highs and the lows. Nobody questions my leadership in the gang. What I say goes. Except when it comes to Shinobu. She's always challenging everything I say, and not only that, all the hard-earned loot I bring back and share with everyone, she goes and returns it. But also, she gets me out of jail and out of every mess we get ourselves into, so I'll let it slide. Besides, I don't want to get on her bad side. An angry Shinobu would make my life a nightmare.
The Oni have called Inazuma their home since ancient times. They existed alongside the Hakushin Kitsune bloodline and the Tengu. Yokai like them often have supernatural abilities, but the Oni lack many special traits. Other than the horns on their heads, the Oni are mostly remembered for their explosive tempers and tendency to make trouble. As for their fear of beans, it has a real scientific basis. Oni are actually highly allergic to beans, but because of how much the Oni bloodline has thinned out over time, most people display only very minor allergic reactions. But unfortunately for Ito, because of his Oni heritage, Ito is extremely allergic to beans. Even touching one can cause him to go into shock, not to mention eating them can cause him to be bedridden for days at a time. This makes beans the only thing that carefree Ito is wary of in his daily life.
I am an Oni, so there's nothing I hate more than beans. Soybeans, mung beans, whatever. I hate them all. Just touching one is enough to set off my allergies, let alone eating them. We have to get people to resist this constant urge to throw beans everywhere.
And to do their part, the Arataki gang members are careful not to order any dishes containing beans, not even in private, as a way to show respect to him. Of all foods containing beans, Ito fears fried tofu the most. He claims that even the sight of it leaves him sick for 3 days straight. When someone mentions fried tofu to Ito, a certain victory comes to mind. One day, after a long day of work, Ito went to sit in a chair outside of his favorite food stand. But going there, he found a fox-eared lady sitting there instead. A contest of words started between the hungry Ito and the lady, which turned into a fully unnecessary battle. Ito, being hungry, chose an eating contest. The lady chose the theme of kitsune ramen. Ito was at a loss when he realized that the ramen contained fried tofu, but with his pride on the line, he continued anyway to victory. As for the chair, it was given to Ito by the food stand owner as a trophy.
I crushed that kitsune ramen eating contest we had. Even all that fried tofu couldn't stand in my way. She didn't come close to beating me. I was, bedridden for more than a month after that. But you know what? I'd rather lie in bed a winner than walk away a loser. So, anyway, I had the last laugh because she had to foot the bill for 32 bowls of noodles. Ha ha!
As for the other contests that Ito has been a part of, 2 in particular stand out to him as rather frustrating. One of them is a rematch that he demanded of Kujo Sara, who defeated him and took his vision as a result of her duties in the Tenryou Commission. To this day, she refuses to agree to a street corner sumo match that Ito wants, and it frustrates him to no end.
You know what? Yeah, she beat me during the Vision Hunt decree. I'm not ashamed to admit it. When you lose, you admit defeat. And when you screw up, you take it on the chin like a man. And anyway, let's not forget which one of us won't agree to a rematch. Her, the Tengu warrior. It's just a sumo street fight. I mean, what's she so afraid of? If she keeps snubbing me, I'm gonna have to stop calling her Kujo Tengu and start calling her Kujo Chicken. We'll see what she thinks of that.
The other is something that happened many years ago when Ito was young. He had gotten into an argument with a young Tengu, which resulted in a sumo match in the Byaku Plain. Unexpectedly though, the fight sent them both barreling down the side of the mountain. In the end, the Tengu ended up carrying Ito all the way home because he couldn't walk after spraining his ankle. This match has also gone unsettled. Both of these incidents had to do with Tengu, and Ito doesn't understand how they're so strong despite looking so skinny. Every Oni child has heard the ancient tale of the Crimson Oni and the Blue Oni, how the gentle and helpful Crimson Oni defeated the wicked Blue Oni and won the respect of the humans. This was Ito's favorite story as a child, and he has always been proud of his red Oni horns and Crimson Oni lineage. This pride, however, was once shaken by a certain incident. When incidents of robbery started happening in young Ito's village, his family fell under immediate suspicion because of their Oni heritage. Though he no longer remembers the details of what happened, he remembers the disgusted and wary stares of the villagers at him and his parents as they left the village, as well as their parting words, once an Oni, always an Oni. No matter the time period, humans just saw all Oni as the same. In that case, wouldn't it be better to be a Blue Oni who the humans feared, Ito thought? That would be preferable to him and his parents being driven out of their village despite doing absolutely nothing wrong. After Ito's parents died of illness, he was turned out to the streets on his own. He would lay into anyone who spoke down upon his race, though it was mostly the others insulting him. But he proved to be resilient, never giving up no matter how many times he was knocked down. But still, he was only a child, and eventually collapsed on the street due to exhaustion and hunger after a round of beatings. At this moment, Ito was saved by an old woman, a human woman. She cared for him from then on, despite him being defiant at first because she, a human, was never expected to care for an Oni like him. Ito never expected that kindness.
Granny Oni isn't an Oni at all. In fact, she's the kindest human that has ever lived. She only got her nickname because she took me in. If people have got a problem with me, fine. I don't care what other people think anyway. But I wish people wouldn't go after her because of me.
As a recent year was coming to a close, the Arataki gang met to talk about how they might celebrate the new year. Unlike more reputable organizations, they didn't have any fixed venues to hold activities. The lavender melon roasting suggestion came up, but was quickly eliminated. Eating just lavender melons wasn't a good way to celebrate the new year. An Onikabuto festival was considered, but since the end of the year wasn't mating season for the beetles, they wouldn't be nearly as motivated as they usually were to fight. Eventually lots were drawn, song, and the Great Sing-Along was selected. This activity was suggested by Ito himself. It entailed everyone standing on an oceanside cliff singing against the wind to express their feelings and well wishes for the future. Many of the gang members rejected this idea in their hearts when they found out about it. Shinobu even said that she'd like to leave and return home on that day, but the event went on nonetheless. Yelling at the wind proved to be quite soothing, and as things turned out, Ito turned out to be a pretty good singer. How did Ito get his vision? This story turned out to be kind of anticlimactic. He just found it under his hip after waking up one morning. That day, he went around excitedly telling everyone he met that he'd received a vision. So much so that everyone got very sick of hearing the story. A few days later, the story changed a bit, to Ito saying that you'd expect someone as great as the head of the Arataki gang to have a vision, and then later to him saying that a person's worth isn't something that can be determined by them owning a vision. Being an Oni, perhaps the human standards don't apply to his receiving of a vision. However, the gods recognize his steadfast nature, pride, and good heart, which is more than likely why he was picked to have a Geo vision. Ito has always done everything he can to best care for his vision.
Don't even ask. Just the thought of it makes my blood boil. Ooh. First, the Shogun's army goes out and steals everyone's precious visions, which already a heinous crime, right? But then they go and stick them all over that statue with absolutely no sense of organization whatsoever. I mean, think about it. The more powerful the vision, the higher up on the statue it should go. That would make sense, right? But no, some Class A jerk in the Tenryo Commission thought it'd be funny to put my vision right at the very bottom. Come on!
Who is Yae Miko? This powerful but mysterious woman is none other than the head shrine maiden at the Grand Narukami Shrine, and editor of her own successful publishing house. Yae is a kitsune and close, trusted friend of A, or the Raiden Shogun, Inazuma's Archon herself.
I am the Guji of the Grand Narukami Shrine. The purpose of my visit is to monitor your every move, for such is the order of the shrine. Oh, come on, don't be so nervous. It's only officialese, for goodness sake. I couldn't just go gallivanting around for no reason at all, could I? Now, come on, do something amusing for me.
Yae is a descendant of Kitsune, or a type of yokai that can be translated to fox spirit. Though don't get confused, they're not ghosts, they're seen as a type of fox with a long life and mysterious powers. In folklore, Kitsune are thought to possess magic and a higher intelligence that gets more powerful with age. They're often depicted with multiple tails, usually up to 9, which indicate their age and power. Yae can be seen with 5 tails when using her burst, and 1 with her elemental skill or plunging attack. They're said to have the ability to shapeshift into human or other form, which Yae is shown to be able to do, as it's talked about in her character stories, and we almost always see her in her human form since she refuses to reveal her fox form to the traveler. As a kitsune, she can be rather mischievous. This includes at her job as Guji and as the owner of Yae's publishing house. She's also impressively good at both manipulating and reading people. This often makes others like Goro and Toma terrified at the sight of her. The tricks she plays are usually elaborate and out of her own enjoyment. Though she's not all about pranks, she does have an emotional side and shows to care about those important to her and considers the countless yokai around Inazuma to be her friends.
My favorite pastime is reading other people's stories. My second favorite is watching other people squirm. If I could find a way to combine the two... oh, that would be entertainment in its purest form.
Yae Miko's personality is described with the analogy of mirror fragments. She can seem any sort of way she wants, cheerful, solemn, sympathetic, and nobody really knows the truth of her personality. Many have tried to figure her out, but very few have succeeded. She's able to blend into any situation, just how she blends in as a human. This isn't all because she's trying to hide something though, quite the opposite actually. She's just the type to do whatever she wants to do, whenever she wants to do it, and people get confused by that. At one time, a well-written and genre-targeted story manuscript was submitted to Yae by another one of the publishing house editors. Though they were sure their work was amazing, Yae Miko was not pleased with it. She gave the opinion that the book was shackled by the topic and not free enough. And though it was written in the format of other top sellers at the time, she told the writer not to focus on this because trends change with the decades, and to focus on the writing itself. A while later, another manuscript was submitted. It was titled Shogun Almighty, Arataki, reborn as Raiden. The other writers didn't really approve, but Yae Miko loved it. She was only concerned with one part, the author's name. She said it was too normal for a book like that, and so she gave them a new pen name.
I decided to found Yae Publishing House simply because I wished to read more interesting light novels, that's all. But it turns out that seeing frazzled authors scraping the bottom of the barrel in a desperate attempt to get their novels finished is where the real amusement comes from. You wouldn't believe some of the excuses they come up with when they're trying to get a deadline extension. Oh, so much more creative than the novels themselves.
Something Yae, as a long-living kitsune and servant of the Electro Archon, which seems to expand lifespans, has to deal with is boredom. Hundreds of years can seem to pass very quickly for her, and as the Guji, she can't always live as exciting of a life as she would always like. Such as, during ceremonies, Yae must perform her duties by attending every shrine ceremony, instead of partaking in the festivities. Though she doesn't see the issue with using her authority as Guji in order to create some entertainment for herself. Such as once ordering Naganohara fireworks to be dropped off by the Yashiro Commission to be set off after the ceremony. She's even mentioned this to the Raiden Shogun, telling her that she never told her she'd never be able to watch the festivities again as Guji. Fun and mischief keep Yae going throughout her everyday life. She also enjoys studying humanity, and certain like-minded people are able to catch her eye. One of these people being Kano Nana, a novel enthusiast who always seems to overly worry about Sayu. Sometimes Yae will watch as Sayu runs off, closely followed by an angry Kano Nana. She'll even sometimes give Kano wrong directions as to which way Sayu ran in order to prolong the chaos. Sometimes Yae will transform herself into an average human and descend from the mountain for some time in a town. She'll visit restaurants, the Asia bathhouse, getting fox fur stuck in the water, and every shop she can possibly find. And at the end of this adventure, she'll stop by Bantan Sango Detective Agency and tell them about all the missing animals she's heard about, and how desperately they need to be brought home, and sometimes this frustrates Kujo-Sara.
Humans are just fascinating creatures. That's why I'm so fond of them. They live such short lives, but for the time they're around, they shine as bright as the midday sun. There are some whose light never grows dim, even over great stretches of time. These are the lives that make for real page-turners.
A long time ago in Teyvat, the yokai such as Tengu, Oni, Tanuki, and Kitsune all used to walk among the humans. Under the Narukami, their powers are used to help the humans through an era of poverty. When seeking refuge in the mountains, they built a city near the sea, which turned into Inazuma. The lineage of Hakushi and Kitsune were some of the most well-known, and it's that line that have left many great stories. Whenever the yokai gathered, they would often share stories with one another. Kitsune Saigu was the organizer of such events, and would regularly host many yokai. Yurakasai loved telling stories to the other yokai, as they would all listen intently. But it was young Yae Miko who would nitpick the details and go back and forth with him over it, until eventually Saigu would make them stop and continue, as the rest of the yokai wanted the story to be told. Some of these stories have been passed down through the generations, but today the yokai's remaining bloodlines are growing smaller and smaller. But Yae still remembers these long, fun nights. Maybe that's where she gets her love of storytelling. Not too long ago, more than half of the 5 artisan lineages of Inazuma were cut off due to a conspiracy. Many were all banished by the shogun. The Kamisato clan were impacted by this due to their failure in supervising their subordinates. But before the shogun could banish them, Yae Miko, who almost never involves herself in politics, stepped in. She saved them from that fate, and while their reputation still wasn't great, at least they were still around. Many people would speculate why the Guji would step in for them, wondering why she'd do something that seemed to be a greater risk than anything, and not wise. Many different stories popped up. Yae wanted people under her control for power, she did it because she suspected something was wrong with the situation, or even speculation that she was in secret talks with the clan itself. The speculations have never amounted to anything though, and Yae has never regretted her decision. The Fire Soothing Festival Committee was an organization run by the Tenryou Commission and managed by the Grand Narukami Shrine. Their goal was to pray for a lack of fires in the coming year, as many buildings in Inazuma were constructed of wood at the time, and a singular house fire could could cause a lot of damage. Years later though, fire precautions would be much more common and serious injuries wouldn't often occur, yet the committee still remained. The Shrine Maidens would dance and the people of Inazuma would give donations, with the proceeds being split 40-60 between the Shrine and the Tenryou Commission. When Yae was having financial issues when starting Yae's publishing house, she looked into the services that the Shrine ran and came across this old committee. She pointed out that all the work is done by the Shrine Maidens, so why does Mora go to the Tenryou Commission? After some changes in preparation, instead of featuring dancing Shrine Maidens, that year's Fire Soothing Festival would feature a light novel submission contest. All of the profits went to the Shrine's coffers, though the Tenryou Commissioners weren't very happy about that, and Yae cared little and sent them on their way when they showed up to her publishing house. Something Yae Miko absolutely loves is fried tofu. As a kitsune, she can hardly resist its delicious flavor.
Heat oil on a medium-high flame in a pot. Add the tofu and reduce the heat to a low flame. Cook until golden brown, take it out, then serve piping hot. There you have it, fried tofu. There's nothing more delicious in this world. Well, I've told you how to make it, have I not? Why are you still standing there?
Yae Miko likes to have fun with stories of how she got her vision. Speaking to the Traveler, she tells them stories of a contest of magic where her and the other Shrine Maidens marched up Mount Yugo. They were faced with an enemy, and just before they struck, a bolt of lightning came down before Yae, presenting a vision. The Traveler questioned if that's what really happened, and Yae replied with another story about a ramen duel. The Traveler didn't believe this silly story either. Yae loves the Traveler's curiosity, asking if they'd believe her if she told them that her vision was purely ornamental and just for show.
You're saying you like how I wear my vision? You certainly have an eye for a priceless treasure. Well then, I bet you'd like to pet it.
So, do we really know how Yae Miko got her vision? I'm afraid this story's kind of lost to time and Yae's playfulness. Who is Keqing? Growing up in a higher class family of noble birth, Keqing grew to become the Yuheng of the Liyue Qixing. She's known for being extremely skeptical of the gods and archons. And as a member of the Qixing, she highly questions Rex Lapis's authority. She recognizes that he's looked over Liyue for centuries, but questions whether or not he will going forward. She questions if he really knows everything, and if he really knows what's best for the people of Liyue.
What do you think has kept Liyue going over the last millennium? Rex Lapis? I disagree. We mortals have to fight for survival whatever happens. He just feels the need to come down here and poke his nose into everything that's going on for some reason. People don't like to think about this, but should we really be trusting him to be an expert in everything?
If their Archon were to suddenly leave, what would happen to the people of Liyue? She often holds opposing views to those of Rex Lapis. But despite her skepticism, Rex Lapis himself respects her and says that Liyue could use more people like her. She strongly believes that humans' views should have equal importance to the views of the gods, and believes that humanity would be better off on its own without the Archons. But through her skepticism, she very much just wants the best for Liyue. One of Keqing's political recommendations is to click the subscribe button. Keqing is extremely hardworking and rarely ever takes breaks. She has a strong sense of responsibility to her job and those she takes care of. She does not rest until her job is done. And if she sees something that needs done, she prefers to do it herself. She strives for efficiency and is very much a perfectionist. She works so hard and tirelessly that no assistant she's ever hired has made it past 3 months of working with her. Something that she carries with her always is an electro-infused hairpin. She uses it as a knife, weapon, and overall survival tool for fishing, cooking, fire, and so on. Her hairpin never leaves her side. She's also been known to be skeptical about the value of visions as well as her own vision. For many years she saw her vision as a curse and an insult from the gods. She believed it to be imbued with divine will, which would directly oppose her views of humanity not needing the gods. She saw it as a curse because over everything she wants to be valued for her hard work, alone, without others seeing it as a gift from the gods because of her vision.
If a vision means the approval of the gods, then I don't see why I should want one. In fact, I find it quite insulting. It's like trying to say everything I've ever achieved is all thanks to the gods looking out for me. Well, I got to where I am today through my own hard work. The gods had nothing to do with it.
She believed that having a vision stole the credit for her work, credit that she believed should be hers alone, and she began to resent her vision. Ironically, it was most likely given to her by the gods as a result of her hard work and dedication. She even tried to destroy her vision multiple times by leaving it in a fire for multiple days, running it over with a minecart, and even throwing it off the top of the Jade Chamber. All of her attempts were unsuccessful though, and not wanting the vision to fall into the wrong hands, she eventually grew to accept it as her own, stating that the source of the power is far less important than the character of its user. She used it as a tool for practicality after realizing it wasn't imbued with any sort of divine will after all, and could prove to be useful. After the events of the Archon quest, Keqing does gain a lot of respect for Rex Lapis. Spoiler warning ahead, skip a few seconds if you don't want to hear this. After Rex Lapis's death, Liyue is left to its own, just as Keqing was worried about. At first she was very happy about this change. She saw it as a way to further prove her hard work and dedication. But after a few months being stuck on the same task, she began to realize how useful Rex Lapis actually was when he was around. She was able to get things done as more and more tasks piled up around her, but not with nearly as much ease as Rex Lapis could with his vast amount of knowledge. So even though she still doesn't like Archons and gods, she can see a little bit of how they are helpful and they do care for their people. Though her outward appearance can be harsh to some, in reality Keqing is just very passionate about her views, work, and she does the best she can to care for those around her. Who is Yoimiya? One of the most beloved, friendly, and inspiring people of Inazuma. She's known for her work as a pyrotechnician at Naganohara Fireworks, her family business where she creates beautiful fireworks to symbolize others' hopes and dreams. Many celebrations are held across Inazuma every year, many having elaborate firework displays, all thanks to Yoimiya. She's become a household name and known as the Queen of the Summer Festival. Citizens of Inazuma love her displays. With the passion and creativity she puts into them, they're always a spectacular sight.
Welcome to Naganohara. My name's Yoimiya. Just let me know if you need anything. We have kushikatsu, egg roll... Wait, no, we're not a restaurant. Oh, we make fireworks. Like these, see? Sparkling, crackling little fireworks.
The Naganohara Fireworks Show started over a century ago when the Yashiro Commission first organized a fireworks display with commemoration as the theme. Fireworks since have become much more common, and because of the citizens' involvement, the fireworks displays are able to continue annually, even despite the risk of fire hazards that the Yashiro Commission and Shrine Maidens always have to take precautions for. Everyone in Inazuma City looks forward to Yoimiya's shows, and even those from other nations. Liyue's Lantern Rite uses her fireworks as well. Even though the transportation of goods to Liyue is technically illegal, she has Beto for that.
Beto's been helping me ship my fireworks out ever since Inazuma was locked down. I prepared a huge boat-shaped firework just to surprise her. And when the Crux fleet was about to leave, this firework went whoosh right in front of their eyes, straight into the sky. The sailors got such a huge fright. They thought one of their ships had somehow flown off. But Beto liked that trick very much, saying that it was exactly what a pleasant surprise should be. Very pleasant and a surprise.
The year that Yoimiya took over her family business, they had one of their most spectacular shows. Before the show started, Ayaka informed Yoimiya that the Raiden Shogun herself would be watching, and to include her emblem. Yoimiya then placed thousands of firework launch tubes around Inazuma City, and for the finale of the display, launched them all. The fireworks were set at just the right angle to depict the gigantic picture scroll of Inazuma City. The fireworks also had an angling trick, and from a certain spot they could be seen as a giant image of the Shogun's house crest. This, as her very first performance, won her the praise of the Inazuma people and the Raiden Shogun herself. Yoimiya craves social interaction, taking every opportunity she can to talk with others about her endless topics and ideas. Actually, if there's no one for her to talk to, she finds it hard to focus on her work. Chatting with guests and customers is her way of understanding their thought process on how the best fireworks can be crafted for them. After her work, sitting down and chatting with guests over tea is how she rewards herself, as well as talking with her neighbors and giving them gifts. She's careful to never cross any boundaries though, and knows how to balance between listening and speaking in her conversations. She never comes off as indifferent, uninterested, or the opposite, overly invested. Yoimiya is fascinated by everyone's different viewpoints. Those who talk with her usually leave in a good mood.
Nah, I don't worry about loose slips, sinking ships. The emotions contained in the words people say don't lie. Misunderstandings that arise from saying things wrongly can be resolved if you just talk more. But if you say nothing, the other person won't understand what you mean, and they can't get closer to you.
After taking over the fireworks shop, she's become a lot closer with her neighbors, many of which see her as an old friend and invite her over to sit and talk. Due to her caring nature, she's often seen playing with and caring for children and keeping them company. By many of the children of Inazuma, she's seen as a big sister. The purity of children brings her joy, and she wants each of them to enjoy their childhood innocence before they are forced to face the harsh realities of Inazuma. Children aren't the only ones she wants to help though. Yoimiya will happily have a deep conversation with anyone willing to open up to her about their troubles and will do her best to help them. Yoimiya believes in the power of language and believes that there's nothing that can't be talked through.
Ooh, let's have a game of rock, paper, scissors. On my count now. Rock, paper, scissors. Woohoo! I won! I won! I didn't change my choice halfway. Why would I ever do that?
She also tends to be a free spirit. Often, those going after perfection tend to be highly self-disciplined, but Yoimiya is almost the opposite. She tends to do what she wants when she wants, and often takes unscheduled breaks from her work. Sometimes she'll work late hours into the night when she misses work during the day, distracted by conversations. But on these nights, she'll often climb to the highest point so she can watch the sunrise before heading to sleep for the day. She often gains inspiration from her fireworks from the pretty orange-red skies, imagining them as she drifts off to sleep. Sometimes her neighbors find her sleeping in interesting places, like stopped water wheels, eaves, and even on tree branches. Thankfully though, she hasn't ever been seriously injured from falling off of these places while asleep, aside from a few scrapes. At other times, she'll sleep until midnight before heading out for a walk, which usually turns into a nighttime adventure, whether she's alone or with friends. Yoimiya loves the sense of freedom that she gives herself, often talking about how interesting it's made her life. She does take a priority in her work though, around the time of festivals or special events. Along with fireworks, Yoimiya also sells trinkets at her shop, many of them being secretly imported from other nations by Beidou. A lot of these games and trinkets are popular with the children, but they're loved just as much by the adults, such as Arataki Ito, who buys her specially made knickknacks to bring to challenge anyone who he declares his nemesis. Some of these knickknacks can be useful in daily life too, such as Yoimiya's katydid coil, a ring containing flammables and spices used to repel mosquitoes when hung up in the summer. Many of the people compliment Yoimiya on her excellent craftsmanship. She's willing to help others with special requests too, though she often states she runs a fireworks shop, not an everything shop. She makes do though, even if her earnings for a whole day are only enough to afford her a few snacks. In recent years, mostly due to an old folk song, children have been bringing Yoimiya shiny trinkets. They believe because of the song lyrics that if they exchange her something shiny for fireworks and light the fireworks, a wish of theirs will come true in the future. At first Yoimiya was troubled by this, but eventually she just played along and accepted whatever the children would bring her, such as rocks and seashells. However, she would not accept expensive items or anything of worth, and would tell the children to return them to their owners. The shininess of an object wasn't very important to her either, but what was important was that she was keeping the dreams of children and their creativity and imaginations alive. Something Yoimiya always has with her is her candy box, which because of its decorations has earned the name Sweet Pearl. She often collects different candies from every store she visits and places them in her box, and every time she encounters a happy event, she eats a piece of candy, and if she's with others, she'll happily share. The speed at which the box lightens is an important measure of happiness for her. Sometimes when she's not paying attention, she accidentally uses it as a hair accessory due to the decorations on it being so similar to the one she usually wears. Or sometimes she purposely does it and gives candy to anyone who notices. Interesting fact, with each purchase of a firework, Yoimiya includes a special slip only readable by the Naganahara family. It's a tradition they've done for years. It allows her to recreate the exact same firework order for them.
Our family has a long tradition in which we will give every client who orders customized fireworks a note. Its contents can only be understood by our family, and it records the specific formula of the fireworks that were ordered. Whether 10 years or 100 years pass, our family can make exactly the same fireworks as they did in the past, so long as the client brings us that note.
One night, after taking over the family business, Yoimiya couldn't sleep, so she instead continued her research. Suddenly, she heard a sound, and a bright red object fell into one of the unused firework launch tubes. It turned out to be a pyrovision. At first, Yoimiya didn't know what it was, but used its pyro abilities as a lighter before eventually tossing it aside. Her father found it one day in a storage room and gave it back to her, explaining its significance and mysterious powers. And since, she has worn it and used it every day, and because of it, she's become much more skilled with the manipulation of fire.
Let me let you in on a little secret. When I first received my vision, I used it as a flint to light fireworks and boil water, before returning home, chucking it into a storeroom, and forgetting all about it. In the end, it was my father who found it and told me that it was a precious item that I should keep safe. At least it didn't get taken back by our dear Archon.
Though she does question why the gods favor her, an ordinary girl and pyrotechnician, asking if even the gods enjoy her fireworks shows? If you've enjoyed, please subscribe and let me know which character you'd like to hear about next. Who is Zhao?
This ancient adeptus, known as the Vigilant Yaksha or Conqueror of Demons, is sworn to protect the people of Liyue for all eternity, though that's kind of the Raiden Shogun's thing.
If you awake to a knife at your throat, if monsters dig their claws into you, if death comes knocking at your door, call out my name, Adeptus Xiao. I will be here when you call.
Zhao is a Yaksha who fought in the Archon War. He's the last living Yaksha from a group of 6. They have visages similar to Pyro, Hydro, Geo, Electro, and Animo. Him, with the power of Animo, still remains in Liyue to this day.
Before the Archon War thousands of years ago, Zhao was enslaved by a cruel master and forced to hurt many people and kill many more. Rex Lapis, the Geo Archon, freed this Yaksha from this fate, and Zhao has stayed loyal to him ever since.
Zhao is his name given to him by Rex Lapis for his own protection. His Yaksha name is General Elatus.
He does not want sympathy for his cruel past, though he feels extremely grateful to the Geo Archon for saving him. As payment, and per their contract, Zhao has dedicated his life to defending Liyue. He does not look kindly upon those who talk down on Rex Lapis.
Morax? What do you know of this name? He gave me the name Xiao, and released me from the endless pain I endured. I will not forgive those that dare to speak against him. Even you.
Though he has seniority among Liyue's adepti, he has little desire for interaction with mortals. Zhao is not an adepti that lavishes devoted humanity with power and gifts. He fights the demons and gods left over from the Archon War that threaten Liyue and its people to this day. Entities that Rex Lapis defeated thousands of years ago, burying them deep within the ground.
Gods are immortal, however, and though they may not physically still be alive, their powers and hatred still remain, and are able to cause harm. This is what Zhao protects Liyue from. An unknown and a thankless job, a war that will never end.
Within the time of destruction that Zhao was forced to perpetuate, a power he calls karma seeped into his soul and tainted it. The karmic debt is a result of the hatred that the ancient gods held for mortals. This is the same power that caused the other 5 Yaksha to either succumb or die to it. It causes physical pain and mental degradation.
The fracturing and defeat of the ancient gods' evil manifestations by the Yaksha is what caused the 6 Yaksha's souls to be tainted. Though Zhao remains very resilient to the pain, corruption, and any hatred, he has almost succumbed to it once, but was saved by the sound of a flute played by the Animo Archon.
Venti? So that's the name he goes by. His tunes are... forget it.
The amount of karma that he's accumulated over the years is enough to consume his flesh and soul. Zhao's true battle is the resistance of karma within himself.
The only thing that relieves himself of this pain is the sound of a flute and the kindness given to him by the traveler. It is due to this that Zhao prefers to be alone and rarely interacts with others. He never wants to accidentally hurt anyone, and only to protect them from the monsters left over that roam the lands of Liyue. He is forlorn but dedicated, and he avoids contact with humanity out of fear that his karma will hurt the people he fights to protect.
Because of his self-isolation, he's unfamiliar with many of humanity's social customs, often finding them strange and pointless. Though he can appear intimidating to others, much of his personality comes from him being afraid to hurt others due to his past. Deep down he is caring, but fears showing that side of himself.
Do not fall prey to the darkness. I have no mercy. Though, perhaps you can stand your ground alone. I'm willing to protect you. But don't think about getting close, and stay out of my way, or all that awaits you is regret.
With the traveler present, Zhao is more willing to be around others and to learn about society. Many are unaware of the role he plays in defending Liyue, but those who are aware refer to him as Conqueror of Demons.
A book, Ode to Windborn Wraith, outlines the Yaksha's purpose in Liyue, though it's not very well known.
The Liyue Qixing built Wangshu Inn to give Zhao a home and a place to rest. Though avoidant, he gets along fairly well with the owners and works with them in his work of conquering demons. He even entrusted Dusky Ming to them, the ghost of a child who haunts the inn.
Something Zhao enjoys is almond tofu from the Wangshu Inn. The food is irresistible to him, reminding him of the dreams he used to be forced to devour before being saved by the Geo Archon.
The Adepti in Liyue are known as mighty and illuminated, the illumination referring to their visions. Though, it's unknown if they receive their visions through the recognition of the gods as humans do. Zhao doesn't remember when he got his vision, only that it marked the beginning of an endless battle for him.
Visions? Desire? Do not judge Adepti by your mortal ideals. I have no desire.
The Lantern Rite is a celebration in Liyue that honors Adepti. Though he should be celebrated on this day, he has grown to dislike it as it stirs up the ancient god's hatred. During it, Zhao is particularly busy defending Liyue.
The Lantern Rite? The time for humans to discard their glowing trash into the sea has returned. How childish. Though, if you insist, I will go with you.
He is broken, but protects Liyue with every part of himself. He doesn't see himself as worthy of kindness, yet not even his mask can scare those who love him. If you've enjoyed, please subscribe and let us know who you'd like to hear about next. Who is Yelan? Though very reliable, this mysterious but intelligent woman definitely seems to have her secrets. While claiming to work for the Ministry of Civil Affairs in Liyue, she's almost never present. Many people question where she gets her sharp intelligence from. So, who exactly is she?
Hello, traveler. Call me Yelan. I think you may need my help, and I just so happen to be interested in some information you have. In other words, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
While very pleasant and polite to those around her, her identity has always been a mystery. Yelan tends to be a very secretive and mysterious person. Though she keeps to herself a lot, she's extremely intelligent and powerful. While she works for the Ministry of Civil Affairs, she's almost always absent and off doing her own thing. When she is at work, it is said that she uses psychological tactics to capture her targets. Her absence is tolerated by Ningguang, while Keqing appreciates her work, though she does question her. Outside of work, Yelan tends to be carefree and calm. She enjoys naps and is willing to adjust her schedule as needed, mainly due to her hereditary physical frailty. She likes doing all of her tasks for the day at once and then resting for the rest of the day afterwards.
The Qixing know Liyue like the back of their hands, but there's certain information out there that can only be obtained using more specialized methods. That's my area of expertise. So I generally take care of all those assignments myself. When I'm tracking a target, I like to put psychological pressure on them. In the process of trying to shake me off, they'll start to panic, bring in reinforcements, alter their plan. They keep going like this until eventually, they've exposed everything I need to know.
People who know of Yelan, specifically those who get themselves into trouble, look forward to meeting her. They think that she'll help them get out of trouble or be their ally. The issue is, it's not just the allies that believe this, it's the enemies too. Sometimes she'll pick a side and offer to help, but those she helps may soon see themselves on the opposite side of her helping. Many of those who have fallen into her trap have vowed to take their revenge on her, but none of them have even come close to succeeding. Also, everyone who meets her as a different identity, so many wonder when is she really telling the truth. When her true identity is revealed, those interested in hearing the truth may not be around anymore to hear it. Yelan is not somebody that you want to mess with. A lot of Liyue citizens believe that she's a spy of some kind for some mysterious organization, purposely stirring up conflict to manipulate others for her own wants and needs. Some believe that she does it purely out of her own enjoyment without affiliation with any sort of organization. Either way, she's still a mystery, and the rumors only add to it. The only way to get the truth would be to ask her yourself, but Yelan tends to be the one that finds others, and not the other way around.
Navigating the world is a whole lot easier with a few different identities to choose from. Need me to come up with some for you?
Now, this next part is a bit strange. Occasionally, pharmacies in Liyue will receive interesting patients, to say the least. These patients, claiming to be all different types of people from all over Teyvat, seem to enjoy pain. They seem to enjoy the stinging of their skin when pharmacists supply remedies to their wounds, some even going as far as to not wanting anesthetic when going through painful therapies or operations. The thing is, all of these people are Yelan, disguised as one of her multiple identities. The physician physicians, amazed by their patients' high pain tolerance, are always too distracted to find out that it's all the same person. She, like anyone else, does need medical care from time to time, especially in her line of work and the inevitable exposure to danger. Though Yalen is no different from the average person with wants and needs, very few things are able to grab her interest. She travels to far-off lands, but traveling is bland to her. She is well-read and well-versed, yet doesn't particularly enjoy reading. She knows what to say to others to get what she wants, yet she takes no joy in playing mind games. Often she rolls dice to decide how to pass her time. Blindness is synonymous to blindness, while thrills afford clarity, is a quote from Yalen, and a philosophy that she lives her life by, all while managing to stick to the shadows.
In my free time, I live life completely at random. It's quite simple. I make a list of things to do, then I roll the dice to decide which one I'm going to do next. It's a surprisingly fun game, and it's really broadened my mind. In that sense, it's been quite helpful where my job is concerned.
Something interesting about Yalen is her high spice tolerance. Even Zhangling's spiciest dish isn't enough to faze her. She enjoys eating fresh or dried Jaeyun chilies. Due to her strange liking of pain maybe, spicy foods are the only things that seem to satisfy her. Though her name does not appear on any of the records of the Ministry of Civil Affairs, Yalen is a special intelligence officer that reports directly to Ningguang. She doesn't see herself as anyone's subordinate. The way she sees it, her work with Ningguang is just a way of honoring a sort of pact. Ningguang wants information that is dangerous to get. Yalen enjoys navigating her way through danger as it gives her a sense of achievement. It's uncertain when their business exchange relationship began. Yalen is known outside of Liyue as well, and many other nations of Teyvat, even stretching as far as the Abyss. For the most part though, she enjoys spending her time in the areas around the chasm and the underground of the chasm. She has a strange instinctual calling to it, as her ancestors once did. Her ancestors being heroes who either died there or went insane within the chasm's depths while fighting monsters from deep below. Yalen has always been curious about what sort of dark energy is drawing her there, even despite her better judgment. With the help of her companions lifting the seal of the chasm's depths, she was able to unveil a hidden past of her ancestors. One day, with her craving of danger, she will walk a similar path as them. She makes it her life's mission to not let Liyue fall into unseen danger as it did hundreds of years ago during the time of her ancestors. Collecting intelligence is her top priority, no matter the cost. For the Ministry of Civil Affairs, Yalen has collected 2 lists of names. A special attention list, short with only a few names, one of which being the Traveler. The people on this list could easily bring danger or harm to Liyue. The other list is a more classified secret intelligence list. Those that are on that list are the real threats to Liyue, perhaps Abyss Mages, Fatui Harbingers, or even the gods themselves. All of these people on the 2 lists, Yalen unknowingly keeps a special eye on. This work greatly pleases her. It is said by the locals to never play dice with anyone you don't know at the Yangsheng Tea House, or else terrible things might happen to you. There are rumors of a terrifying woman and to ignore her if she invites you to play. This woman, of course, is Yalen in one of her many disguises. A while ago, after the Fatui lost control of the tea house, Yalen used the opportunity to take control and to turn it into a secret base. All different types of people come through, and it's a great source of intel. From time to time, Yalen comes in, just pretending to be a regular customer, having some tea and playing some games. Though with her intelligence skills, she's always able to outwit her opponents. Those who lose are best advised to accept the loss, and those cheating are advised to do the same. Reasoning isn't really a concept at the Yangsheng Tea House, especially not with this mysterious woman.
Some say the boss of Yenshan Tea House is a young entrepreneur who got rich overnight. Some say there's a sickly and frail senior employee of the Ministry of Civil Affairs living as a hermit outside the city. Others say you should stay away from restricted areas, or you'll get haunted by a blue ghost. Obviously, most civilians have never heard the name Yelam before, so you can safely laugh off all these rumors.
Through her career, there is one mission that stands out to Yalen as both a victory and a loss. It was a loss because she lost a family heirloom, a special bracelet that could be used as a simple form of communication when tethered to the other. She only has one now, which is useless aside from just being an accessory. The winning part though was that her enemy, Regrator, the 9th of the Fatui Harbingers, didn't get the upper hand either. Yalen intercepted a trade route run by him, capturing something of equal value to her bracelet. Fur from a strange mythical beast that died centuries ago, it being so powerful that its body is still intact. A robe made from this fur would be worth a fortune, and that was Regrator's plan as an offering to the Tsaritsa. Combining it with some yarn from Leeway, Yalen used the fur to make her own outfit.
The bracelet on my right hand? I suppose there's no harm in telling you. It contains a kind of magic used by our clan, and it can send simple messages. The meaning of those messages is buried in the blue light, and only I can decipher them.
Though Yalen today is always alone in her missions, it wasn't always that way. She once had a team of others who, like her, stuck to the darkness. They all looked out for one another. Back then, Yalen did not understand that her skills and tricks could not solve everything for her, and as a result, many members of her team were killed on missions, though they had all been prepared for that fate. After a mission investigating the Abyss, Yalen found herself alone, and for the first time, stopped for a long time. This continued for so long that Ningguang visited Yalen's wooden hut personally one day, understanding that if Yalen wanted to quit, she could, and saying that she trusted her. Yalen only replied by saying that they should no longer involve ordinary people in their work. With Yalen walking out of the hut, Ningguang could see blood dripping from Yalen's fingers, the result of hard, intense archery training. Yalen fired an arrow into the sky, the arrow bursting into water as well as the many other arrows of water that shot up from nearby water sources in the mountains, as if replying to a call from the gods themselves. As it exploded into a shower, only a faint glowing pillar of light could be seen in Yalen's hand, a hard-earned hydro vision.
Wherever there's important information to be found, the stakes involved in extracting it are often fatal. It doesn't matter how big or reliable the team under you may be, you can never completely rule out the risk. The bottom line is, have enough force at your fingertips to control the situation. I got lucky. I got my vision just a few days after realizing that. Otherwise, you'd probably be talking to a very disheveled-looking ghost right now.
Who is Bennett? Bennett is a young, optimistic, and hard-working member of the Adventurers Guild. He lives in Mondstadt and has a strong passion for adventure. Unfortunately, though, he is cursed with horribly bad luck.
I was born unlucky. That's just the way it is. And I've lived with it so long now that I'm just used to it. But you know what? Maybe it's a good thing. It means I know that whatever luck I do have left is gonna run out sooner rather than later. So I'd better make the most of my life while it lasts. You know, go on plenty of adventures, meet loads of people. I mean, if I didn't live like that, I may never have even met you. Can you imagine?
When adventuring, he typically has a hard time finding any treasure despite his efforts, and he always seems to run into overpowered enemies. He doesn't let bad luck game down though. He's always enthusiastic about adventuring and continuously tries to better himself. Though he is the leader of his very own Benny's Adventure team, he's the only remaining member after the others decided to leave after a series of unfortunate incidents. The team is actually on the verge of being dissolved because teams at the Adventurers Guild require 3 to 4 members, but his team still exists because Catherine doesn't have the heart to break the boy's dreams of being an adventurer.
I'm the leader of Benny's Adventure Team, a rising star in the Mondstadt Adventurers Guild. Where are the others? They're all on leave right now.
What happened to his teammates? Well, Jack, the first victim, nearly fell into a gigantic chasm that opened in front of him and Benny due to an unusual geoturbulence right as they were a few feet away from treasure. Royce was knocked unconscious in an explosion due to Klee mistaking the cave they were exploring as a giant rabbit hole. And as for Heckler, shortly after he joined the team, he got a bad case of diarrhea. It turned out to be due to food poisoning, but he blamed Bennett's bad luck. All of them claimed to have taken leave, but none of them really plan on coming back.
You wish. Benny's Adventure Team has had no vacancies in ages. I mean, you must be spoiled for choice, right? Why'd you want to join the unluckiest adventurer alive anyway?
On an adventure once, Bennett became severely wounded, losing more blood than he really should. But despite this, he continued forward, and at the end of his journey, he found absolutely nothing. Eventually, he passed out due to blood loss, but when he woke up, he noticed his wounds had been mysteriously cauterized, and he noticed a pyrovision in his hand pulsing to his own heartbeat. Bennett believes that his vision is a sign from the gods that they haven't given up on him despite his bad luck.
Getting recognized by the gods was the last thing I expected, seeing as how I'm so unlucky all the time. But if the gods haven't given up on me, I guess that means I shouldn't give up on me either.
He was fully raised by Adventurers Guild members. At the end of a journey gone horribly wrong, an old adventurer found something he didn't expect, a baby. A child abandoned by the world itself. The old man figured this was the meaning to his journey, and before passing away due to injuries, he brought the baby back to the guild. His final words being will, adventure, and final treasure. The guild members named the baby Bennett and raised him as one of their own, an adventurer. Bennett has always referred to Adventurers Guild members as his dads.
I like all kinds of things, but most of all, I like adventures. One day, I'm gonna find the most valuable treasure in the whole world, and then my dad's gonna have a better life, and the Mondstadt Adventurers Guild will be back in business.
Despite having many scars, Benny has an unusual tolerance for pain. He's just gotten used to it. He often visits Barbara, the deaconess of the Church of Favonius, for medical attention and bandages. She's always willing to help him and wants him to take better care of himself, which he's very grateful for. Often he surprises others because of his high pain tolerance and painful looking fighting style. Something Bennett always carries with him are extra bandages that he gets from Barbara, Catherine, his dads, or other adventurers he meets out in the wild. He keeps a collection of them in his utility pouch, and he uses them with care when needed. Benny sometimes wonders about the meaning of death. He's heard many great stories of the old man who once saved him, and the adventurers around him always have a toast at funerals to honor the lives of the fallen adventurers. And like many adventurers, he believes that a good death comes at the end of a life in pursuit of adventure, and their souls are returned to their homeland by Barbados. He once feared death, but after thinking it over, he came to the conclusion that death may be something fortunate at the end of an adventurous life. Not that he's ever very fortunate. What is Lantern Rite? Taking place around Chinese New Year, Lantern Rite is a huge yearly festival that takes place in Liyue, Genshin's nation based off China and designed similarly to Chinese architecture. The origins of Lantern Rite date back thousands of years to the Archon War. During this time, at night, Liyue's people would release lanterns into the sky, both to encourage those fighting and to act as a guide for the way home. After the war ended, releasing lanterns became a way of honoring those who lost their lives in the war. Since then, and over the decades, the practice has evolved into the Lantern Rite Festival, a celebration of Liyue's history, people, and the fallen Adepti and defenders of Liyue. Unfortunately though, to this day, around the time of Lantern Rite is also the time in which the Archon War's fallen and defeated god's power is most active, which Zhao has to fight back throughout the entire festival. Citizens of Liyue all collectively celebrate and partake in the festival each year. It's believed by many that helping out with the festival could bring good luck in the year to come. Though the Ministry of Civil Affairs covers the majority of the costs, citizens often make donations, help supply materials, build the lanterns themselves, and set up shops for the annual Zhao Market and so on. The Zhao Markets are shops set up during this time by Liyue's business owners. They aren't used to make a profit though, as many donate their earnings to contribute to the building of the Mingzhao Lantern, the biggest and most significant lantern to be released each year. The Mingzhao Lantern is always modeled and based off of a fallen Adepti who died protecting Liyue. Its size is determined by the amount of plasterite found within the year. We'll get to this element in a moment. Hundreds of Zhao lanterns are also built and released. These lanterns are smaller, individually made, and unique to each person who makes them. There is no one correct way to make a Zhao lantern. Now, what is plasterite? It's a special type of element found in Liyue known for its anti-gravitational properties after activation. Any object imbued with plasterite is able to share in its floating abilities. This is what makes the lanterns that are released float. Liyue's people gather as much of this rare element as they can throughout the year. The more they gather, the more Zhao lanterns and the bigger the Mingzhao lantern. Those involved inscribe their prayers in the plasterite in their lanterns for good fortune. This element is also what powers the Jade Chamber's floating mechanism. There are a few different types of plasterite, the most common being the green kind, as well as the more rare azurite, which is blue, and vermilionite, which is red. All of the glowing lanterns are released on the night of Lantern Rite, honoring Liyue's history and people and displaying a beautiful sight which can be seen from miles away. If you've enjoyed learning about the lore of Lantern Rite and want to learn more about Teyvat, make sure you subscribe.